Quiero que quede claro, lo que estoy a punto de hacer es completamente una broma para después desahogarme y después explicarles exactamente lo que está pasando. Así que antes de que se me pongan como locas, tranquilos, esto es un chiste y después viene la explicación. Pero Estados Unidos está entrando en pánico. Han visto que el presidente Donald Trump puso aranceles en contra de México, Canadá, también Europa. Bueno, está proponiendo los europeos y también a China. Han subido los aranceles en China a 20% de 10%, a México a 25%, a Canadá otra vez 25%. La razón por la que dice Donald Trump que está haciendo esto es porque todavía Canadá y México no le han ayudado con lo que está pidiendo y también, como con todos, porque también tenemos tarifas recíprocas que están entrando en vigor en enero, febrero, marzo, abril, el 2 de abril, no el 1 de abril, porque en Estados Unidos es el día de la broma. Entonces, el 1 de abril todo lo que pongas es payasada. Donald Trump dijo, soy supersticioso, no quiero ponerlo nada ahí. Entonces, tenemos esta guerra comercial brutal y Estados Unidos está panicando. Salí a la calle anoche, salí a la calle obviamente ayer y vi a todo el mundo preguntándose qué va a pasar, qué va a pasar. Porque sabemos que la respuesta de México, de la presidenta Claudia, ha sido muy tranquila, con mucha dignidad y tiene la soberanía de México enfrente de todo. Y con eso, todo el mundo está apanicado y como si fuera poco, México se va a juntar. La Ciudad de México, la presidenta ha convocado una junta en la Ciudad de México, en el Zócalo, este domingo, para poder todos marchar con dignidad en contra de estos aranceles. Estados Unidos no sabe qué hacer. Esta marcha de dignidad es algo con lo que nunca habíamos tenido que lidiar. Ha estado muy dura la cosa aquí en Estados Unidos. El mercado está cayendo desde que anunciaron la marcha de la dignidad. Básicamente nuestro ejército no sabe qué hacer. Ya están, me imagino, deteniendo ya la búsqueda de esos ilegales para sacarlos. Porque nunca Estados Unidos se había enfrentado a diferentes amenazas en el pasado, como terroristas, como guerras económicas, gente devaluando su moneda, pero nunca en la vida y en la historia se había enfrentado con una presidenta que hablara con calma, lentamente, con dignidad y de la soberanía del pueblo. Eso nunca había pasado. Entonces, Estados Unidos está perdiendo la cabeza, el mercado está cayendo. ¡Ah! Ay, Dios mío, las cosas que tenemos que leer. La propaganda está cabrona, ¿eh? Está a un nivel ridículo, no solo en México, en Estados Unidos también. Lo de ayer fue una locura. Vimos a Donald Trump dar su presentación donde platica después de, creo que son sus primeros 45 días de presidente, y platica de todas las cosas que está haciendo, ¿no? Y vieron el show que pusieron, el Partido Demócrata, vinieron las mujeres vestidas. Este es mi problema más grande de todo esto, la incongruencia de toda la estupidez que existe, porque además están volviendo loca a mi gente, carajo, a todos, a los americanos y a los mexicanos, los están volviendo absolutamente locos y están polarizando absolutamente todos. Eso es lo que a mí me molesta de esto. En realidad lo que está pasando es completamente estúpido, pero mucha gente no tiene la habilidad de poder distinguir qué es una realidad y qué no, qué es mentira y qué no. De nuevo, es muy difícil que una persona hable de política sin entender principios económicos y sin entender principios de negocios. Es imposible. Lo único que estás viendo es un show de entretenimiento y no sabes por qué está pasando el show de entretenimiento, literalmente. Y eso está volviendo y polarizando a la gente y separándolos a todos para que se olviden de las cosas importantes. Una de las cosas que me vuela la cabeza, voy a primero hablar de Estados Unidos, después nos vamos a lo de los aranceles. Pero en Estados Unidos, tíos, vienen todos los demócratas, ¿no? El Partido Demócrata, que de nuevo no tenemos dos partidos, es un show lo que están poniendo, etcétera. Pero viene el Partido Demócrata y las mujeres se visten de rosa para apoyar a las mujeres. Pero no quieren que los hombres dejen de competir en deportes de mujeres. Solamente un ejemplo pendejo, ¿no? Oh, ¿cómo estoy apoyando a las mujeres? Necesitamos más hombres vestidos de mujer compitiendo en los deportes femeninos. ¿Qué? ¿Qué? Literalmente así de tontos. Luego, ¿me pueden explicar por qué a los demócratas nunca les importó la inflación hasta hoy y ahora están esperando resultados? ¿Alguien me puede contar? Y también esto va para toda la gente imbécil que tengo que leer en Instagram y en X, en todos lados, hablando de esto, que en 45 días Donald Trump solo ha causado una inflación y que el mercado baje. Esto es literalmente lo que dijo iba a pasar, tíos. Esto es literalmente lo que estamos haciendo. Estamos destruyendo todo nuestro gasto de gobierno, lo que causa una contracción de la cantidad de dinero que flota y eso hace que los mercados caigan. Pero todo el mundo como imbécil sin entender ninguna dinámica de nada, porque cuando les dijimos, va a haber inflación, tíos, todo el mundo se la pasó por los huevos. Y todo el mundo dijo, a mí no me importa la inflación, yo voy a votar por Kamala Harris porque además de que me recuerda a mi mamá, la alcohólica, ¿no? Todo el mundo bueno, a la tía alcohólica que todos tenemos y que nadie aguanta. Además de eso, voy a votar por ella, porque lo primero que tengo que hacer es votar por los derechos de los demás. Díganme qué derechos de mujeres están siendo violados, dónde están en Estados Unidos siendo detenidas estas mujeres, donde no las dejamos hacer algo diferente. Lo tienen lavado en la cabeza. Y esas personas que dijeron, no tienes que votar por la economía, literalmente, y siempre uso a esta amiga de Belén como ejemplo, no les voy a decir quién es, pero el retraso mental está en un nivel, está en altos históricos. Si creen que Bitcoin en $180,000 está en altos históricos, el retraso mental está en el equivalente de $7 millones por Bitcoin por retraso mental. La misma persona, cuando hice un video diciendo, güey, por favor, voten por cosas congruentes, vota por cosas que te importan, no por empatía porque te están lavando la cabeza. Tu economía, tu dinero está desapareciendo de tu bolsa, tío. ¿Ok? Vas a votar por eso. Y en vez de contestar, hey, punto interesante, la economía sí está jodida, esta mujer hace un video diciendo, es muy obvio que todos los hombres machistas y sexistas quieren votar por esto, pero la economía no es tan importante como los derechos de la mujer y de tus hijas. Ok, los derechos de la mujer y las hijas siguen igual, nada ha cambiado, pero ahora la misma persona está preguntando, ¿por qué la inflación existe todavía después de 45 días de que Donald Trump entró? Me están chingando. O sea, esto, y tienen los huevos de hablar en voz alta y decir estas cosas. Estamos perdidos como sociedad, en todos lados, en absolutamente todos lados. Estas peleas entre todo el mundo son estúpidas porque no tienen sentido, porque no entienden de lo que están hablando. Yo no estoy diciendo que yo sé todo y que entiendo todo, pero mínimo los principios básicos para no ser completamente un imbécil y pedir algo que nadie había pedido, que no les habían importado por 4 años, que la inflación nos estuviera comiendo, cogiendo, violando a todos, que todos los precios de todos subieran, que mataran a todas las gallinas que mataron, que quemaran todas las fábricas de comida que quemaron, nunca les importó. Ahora tenemos que escuchar todo eso y cómo Donald Trump está tirando el mercado. Vamos a una recesión porque tenemos que ir a una recesión. Dios mío, me duele la cabeza, el cerebro solamente de ver estas estupideces y contradicciones. Es cabrón. Vamos a los temas de los aranceles y discúlpenme, porque estas cosas son una estupidez gigantesca. Los aranceles. Veo a mucha gente en México diciendo, no vayas a comprar a Walmart, no vayas a comprar a tiendas americanas, no compres Coca-Cola. Tíos, FEMSA México, una empresa mexicana es dueña de Coca-Cola en México. Y son los dueños de los Oxxos también. Y son los dueños de todo lo que estás comprando. Es una empresa mexicana. ¿Y quién les ha dicho eso? Estoy preocupado por el nivel de estupidez que existe. A este punto, había una pandemia de estupidez. Toda la gente se ha vuelto más estúpida, definitivamente. Todos nos hemos vuelto más estúpidos. No hay forma que estas conversaciones tan tontas nos estén haciendo ganar algo. Esa es una, de que Coca-Cola y todas estas empresas son mexicanas. Literalmente lo que se lleva a Estados Unidos por los derechos de la Coca-Cola y ¿cómo se llama? La fórmula es un porcentaje de este tamaño, tíos. Entonces, estás matando a México. Estás matando empleados mexicanos en tu territorio. Estás matando... Bueno, para empezar, no lo van a hacer porque todo el mundo sigue tomando Coca-Cola. Solamente quieren venir a redes sociales a decirle a todo el mundo lo chidos que son y lo vergas que son. Otra cosa, no vayas a comprar a las tiendas grandes. Ve a comprar a tu tiendita local. ¿Quién distribuye a las tiendas locales? ¿Ustedes creen que hay 1,000 millones de camiones de cada producto mexicano que existe para entregar a las tienditas locales? Esta es otra estupidez gigantes. Viven en un mundo donde nadie comprende cómo funcionan las bases de un negocio y están dando las ideas más pendejas del mundo solamente para apoyar algo retrasado mental. Algo retrasado mental. Y eso es, vamos a tener una marcha de soberanía, de no sé qué, contra los aranceles de Trump. Están haciendo esto en contra de los aranceles de Trump. Les voy a decir cuál sería la realidad más grande de todo esto. Estamos poniendo aranceles recíprocos en todo el mundo. Recíprocos quiere decir, si alguien me está cobrando 100 pesos por mandar mis productos allá, les voy a cobrar 100 pesos de vuelta por mandármelos a mí. Si México baja los aranceles a Estados Unidos, piensen en esto. Piensen en esto. Yo sé que la dignidad y la soberanía y todo esto, y nadie se va a poner de moños. Cuando compras algo en línea o cuando compras un producto americano en México, te sale más caro de lo que cuesta en Estados Unidos. ¿Sí o no? Sí, porque México cobra un arancel mucho más grande de lo que cobra Estados Unidos al importar cosas en México. Si México, y no estoy diciendo que corte aranceles México y que se doble, esto es por la población, tíos. ¿Ok? Esto es sentido común. A este punto ya tengo que decirlo así. Si México corta aranceles recíprocamente junto con Estados Unidos, todos los productos gringos también serían más baratos en México. Y eso haría que tus precios bajen. Pero nadie te ha dicho eso, tío. No, no, no. La dignidad, la soberanía, con calma. Eso es el mensaje más estúpido que he escuchado en toda mi vida. Por mucho. ¿Y por qué lo están haciendo? Y esto, honestamente, no quiero platicar mucho de esto porque les dije lo que estaba haciendo Estados Unidos en México y todo esto antes de que pasara. Y mucha gente se quedó como, ajá, güey, tus teorías de conspiración. Pasa y a la gente se le olvida el por qué. La razón por qué Estados Unidos quiere hacer esto, lo que está diciendo con México, es por la razón que México le dio a Estados Unidos, creo que fueron 29 narcotraficantes últimamente, y es porque no importa lo que ustedes piensen, ¿no se les hace raro que en México estén más enfocados y preocupados por marchas para corregir los aranceles de Trump de productos americanos que ustedes pueden dejar de consumir? En vez de limpiar el crimen, invertir en infraestructura, toda la matazón de gente que hay en todos lados, ¿no? ¿Cómo están todos esos lugares? La inflación en México. El hecho de que todo el mundo se esté yendo a otro país y que la presidenta tenga que defender que los dejen en ese otro país porque se fueron para hacer más dinero en otro país porque en México no existe esa oportunidad de ese tamaño. ¿Me están chingando? ¿Alguien me está chingando? Y para que entiendan esto, para todo el mundo que no comprende la guerra de los aranceles, me tocó la primera guerra de aranceles con China, cuando estaba produciendo mis mochilitas de puku en China. ¿Saben qué pasa cuando te ponen aranceles y no te sale el costo? Nos volteamos a Vietnam. Vámonos a Vietnam, producimos la chingadera esta y vámonos de vuelta. No tengo aranceles, estoy cambiando mi lugar de producción. Cuando estábamos en la pandemia, China cerró y cambiaron políticas de exportación en toda esa región. ¿Qué fue lo que pasó? Agarramos y de las partes que necesitamos para ciertos productos, en vez de comprarlas en China, las compramos en Hong Kong. Eso es la guerra de aranceles. Así corriges la guerra de aranceles. Así todo se va a reacomodar. Cuando dice Europa, y esto es simplemente porque Estados Unidos quiere absorber todo el comercio. Ya no estoy diciendo que esté bien o que esté mal, pero cabrones, por las cosas que se están peleando, es como de kinder. Es una verdadera locura. La principal cosa que todos nos tenemos que preocupar es por todo nuestro bienestar. Todos, en todos los países. En Estados Unidos me preocupo por mi bienestar, quiero menos crimen, no quiero menos crimen, quiero que no haya crimen como era antes, que se respeten las leyes como lo hacían antes. Eso es lo que estoy buscando, que limpien todo y que invirtamos una vez más en toda nuestra infraestructura y se dejen de mamadas con censuras y cosas así. Eso es lo que yo quiero de mi país acá. En México, me encantaría poder caminar a todos lados con mi reloj mamón, ¿no? Y no solo por eso, pero por la seguridad de todo el mundo también. Que se respeten las leyes sería lo primero que yo haría. Dejar de comprar productos chinos que están matando tu propia industria en México es lo que yo haría para crear más trabajos. Pero en vez de eso, en todo el mundo estamos enfocados en derechos de estos güeyes. Piensa en ti mismo, en lo que te gustaría ver en tu país y dime, ¿eso es prioridad de tus mandatarios? ¿Sí o no? Y la gran mayoría es un no, en todos lados para nosotros. Eso es lo que nos debería de preocupar. Eso es lo que nos debería de unir a todos. No estas estupideces, por el amor de Dios. No va a haber guerra civil en Estados Unidos. En Estados Unidos lo único que están haciendo es los medios calentando la idea de que todos están enojados con Donald Trump. ¿Se acuerdan que Kamala Harris iba a ganar las elecciones? ¿Quién se acuerda? Kamala Harris iba a ganar las elecciones. Las encuestas enormes, el partido de la felicidad. Todo es mentira. Hablas con cualquier persona, igual que les dije antes de que ganara Trump. Trump va a ganar, pero por mucho, porque nadie, gente que había votado por Biden está volteándose a votar por Trump. Anoche platiqué con muchísima gente que me escribió después del speech durante el speech de Trump. Todos estaban encantados. Y sobre todo con la risa de todo lo que está pasando en Estados Unidos con los demócratas, etcétera. Güey, esa es a la gente que le están quitando el negocio. A la mitad de los políticos y a la mitad de toda esta gente le están quitando todo el negocio que se están robando, tíos. ¿Por qué creen que están enojados? ¿Por qué creen que el otro lado de la gente? ¿Por qué ahora a Bernie Sanders y a los gobernadores estadounidenses les importa que haya un oligarca a cargo como Elon Musk? Tenían a Joe Soros, tenían a Mark Zuckerberg que les dio $400 millones en el 2020. Tienen a todas las farmacéuticas. Díganme, ¿qué ha cambiado que ahora el Partido Demócrata está volteándose en contra de esto? Nada, nada. Nada, no ha cambiado nada, es lo mismo. Lo único que está pasando es lo que pasó con Meta, lo que está pasando con Amazon, lo que está pasando con X, lo que está pasando con todas las empresas. Estamos en un punto en el 2025 donde la inteligencia artificial puede cortar un chingo de trabajos. Estados Unidos funcionaba como una máquina gigantesca, el gobierno, que le pagaba a todo el mundo que ha sido parte de la máquina de por vida. Estados Unidos está yendo a la bancarrota y por ende, en este nuevo término, en este nuevo día donde estamos viendo que podemos producir cosas, traer negocios de otros países, etcétera, queremos cambiar todo eso. Y ahora no estoy diciendo van a dejar de robar, no, pero va a haber menos gente robando. Menos gente se va a robar el dinero y por eso hay gente que está emputada, porque ya no los van a dejar robarse todo el dinero, ya no les va a caer un cheque de la nada que no dice para qué es. Eso es lo que estamos viendo. ¿Por qué ahora a los demócratas les importa la inflación? ¿Por qué ahora a los demócratas les importa el dinero? ¿Por qué ahora a los demócratas les importa que haya alguien con dinero detrás de política cuando siempre ha habido? ¡Ta madre! Es puro palo. Todo lo que ven en las noticias, todo, y lo que leen en todos lados, en X también. Si se ponen en X por 5 minutos, van a ver cuentas que están repitiendo las mismas cosas. Por ejemplo, en México, si solamente viven en México, y las mismas cosas son, la presidenta, estamos con nuestra presidenta, 85% de apoyo, la mujer es la primera presidenta, lo hace con dignidad, lo hace serenamente y lo hace, son las mismas palabras. Así es como funciona la propaganda. En Estados Unidos, todos nuestros senadores, todos los demócratas se sentaron en un sillón a hacer un video y el video es idéntico en todos lados. Es propaganda. Todo es propaganda. Y si no entiendes cómo funciona el dinero, tío, te están pendejeando con esta propaganda de izquierda a derecha. Nada ha cambiado. Todo está igual. Vámonos a algo más divertido. Y por cierto, para toda la gente que se está preguntando y está viendo al dólar caer en este momento y están pensando, güey, todo va a subir, etcétera. La razón por la que el dólar está cayendo es, recibimos el dato de empleos el día de hoy, estábamos esperando 177,000 y solamente tuvimos 70 y tantos mil empleos creados. Esto es parte de lo que les estoy diciendo. Estados Unidos cae en una recesión, va a caer en una recesión. Eso va a hacer que el dólar baje, pero al mismo tiempo que el dólar va a bajar al principio, los intereses van a bajar. Y cuando encuentren ese delicioso balance, el dólar va a subir hasta el cielo y destruir a todas las monedas internacionalmente. Pero Estados Unidos, una vez más, como el 2008, es el primero en aventarse a la piscina de cabeza y el primero en morir. Es el primer soldado en morir. Pero cabrón, cuando le jalas al baño, la primera cagada, la más grande, es la primera que se va, pero todas las chiquitas, que son todos los otros países alrededor de ella, por gravedad y por efecto, acaban yéndose también abajo. Es lo mismo que va a pasar. Ha pasado una y otra vez, y una vez más, lo que va a ponerse el ambiente pesado, muy pesado para el próximo año o 2 años en todo el mundo, en México, en Estados Unidos, en Canadá, en Europa. Y la razón por qué es, si habíamos dicho, vamos a ir a una recesión este año porque están ajustando la cantidad de gasto que tenemos, etcétera, y lo sabemos, estamos viendo cómo la gente no puede entenderlo. Nada más no lo puede comprender, no les cabe en la cabeza y la propaganda se los está llevando al chile. Es todo. Ese es mi paz. Vámonos al casino del tío Salo. Tengo aquí a Alex y a Farhan. Y ahora, esto es lo que vamos a hacer. Me tengo que ir a las 9. Tengo un evento hoy. Nunca tengo nada. Ya saben, siempre estoy acá. Pero el día de hoy tengo un evento de un amigo que bla, 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 bla. No les quiero decir para no meterme en la vida de mis amigos enfrente de todos ustedes. Pero me tengo que ir a las 9, entonces discúlpenme, pero vamos a empezar de una vez. Discúlpenme que me comí 20 minutos. Vámonos con los análisis de estos tíos tan potentes. Pero antes, por cierto, a todo el mundo ya saben que tenemos nuestro Discord acá. Está al servicio de la comunidad. Es absolutamente gratuito. Se los voy a poner en pantalla grande. Está aquí abajo el enlace para que puedan entrar todos derechito. Y acá es muy fácil de navegarlo, tienes el nombre aquí arriba, tienes todos los menús a la izquierda, los análisis de Alex, los análisis de Farhan, el chat general acá. Ayer estuve platicando con todos ustedes, la pasé muy bien y por cierto, acabé haciendo mi short que iba súper arriba, lo acabé regresando a cero para todos ustedes que estaban acá conmigo. Así acabamos todos, cabrones. Nos agarró la medianoche. Vengan a ver todo el criptolingo también, no se lo pierdan. Si necesitan entender algo que tal vez haya términos que no entiendan, etcétera, están aquí en inglés y en español. Vengan a compartir sus ganancias, sus pérdidas con nosotros, como el que no, verga. Nada mal, un 400%. Vengan a pedirnos tablas, vengan a dejar testimoniales, vengan a ver nuestros enlaces oficiales también para que no les vean la cara y también sepan, nunca les vamos a escribir, no les vamos a pedir dinero jamás, todo está en nuestro sitio web. Y para todos ustedes que quieran tradear futuros con nosotros, también les voy a decir exactamente cómo lo pueden hacer. Pueden hacerlo para los que son principiantes, vénganse a nuestro sitio, píquenle en tutos, que son tutoriales, te metes en cómo tradear en Bluffing. Y este video de 5 minutos te explica cómo fondearlo, cómo usarlo, etcétera. Y aquí tienes el enlace directo también. Y si quieren participar en nuestro torneo de trading en BTCC, también tienen el enlace aquí abajo. Lo único que tienen que hacer es registrarse con el enlace de abajo. Y estamos en un torneo de 60,000 USDTs. El 40% se lo lleva el primer lugar, bla, bla, bla. Entonces va a haber una buena lana. Va a haber una buena lana. Son $60,000 en total. Vénganse, funciona igual que Bluffing. Si quieren entender cómo funciona, es idéntico y lo único que hacen es usar nuestro enlace que está aquí abajo en la descripción del video. Sin más ni más, vámonos con estos cracks. Vámonos a let's go to the markets, my boys. How are you?
Buenos dias, muchachos. Doing
yo.
well.
Oh,
Almost got stopped overnight.
I got
what a fun market.
I got
this
stopped.
absolute piece of shit Bitcoin almost stopped me out.
Trading against Donald Trump is pretty hard. Yeah. It's pretty fucking hard.
You can't beat the Donald Pump.
You can't beat the Donald Pump and the Donald Dump. You can't beat either one because it depends on what day it is.
I received my presidential liquidation notice in my email saying I need to add margin.
I got presidentially liquidated, so I understand. That's a dope Dragon Ball shirt.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let's look at Bitcoin, boys.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's look at Bitcoin. I'm going to have to leave at 9. I apologize. So that's in 2 hours from now. But if you guys want to roll with the community, please feel free to do so. I need to fucking fuck off. I told you what, guys. Why?
Have you guys seen Dixie?
Yeah, going down hard.
Told you Phyllis 104s.
Well, this is a little bit of what no one understands with the Dixie DXY, the dollar, is the reason why it dumped like it dumped is we had weaker job reports, right? We were expecting like 170, 180,000. We got 70,000 new jobs. So that's really bad. And that it's starting to signal where the U.S. is going into the recession that we've been talking about for a while, or that I've been talking about for a while. And if we go into that recession, the first thing, the dollar has to go down, as people are going to lose trust in the dollar. But at the same time, and what will prove that this is right, is yields will continue to go down as they're coming down, especially the 10-year yield, the 30-year yield is going to come down. That means the Federal Reserve doesn't have to lower rates. That means that rates are naturally coming down. And whenever the United States starts to grow and the rates come down enough and DXY starts to go up, that's going to be the pump of the century on the dollar. And that's when every other country is going to go to absolute shit. It was, this is exactly what happens in this environment. So we cannot read the DXY in the same way we did before, whereas DXY came down, market goes up, because now it's signaling weak economic data.
No, and you're absolutely right on that. Because I was about to say, the environment that we're used to, it's not there right now. And we're seeing that now with euro up a lot, Dixie down a lot, and Bitcoin's down.
So in this current environment, the only thing you can really get from Dixie going down is that the other currencies are probably going up. Because that's the most direct correlation with Dixie, is the basket of other currencies.
Because it's relative. But if you look at the peso, for example, dollar, it didn't come down that much to compare to how much the dollar went down. So in a way, this is going to continue to happen, and it'll continue to get bigger as we get into the not euro, peso.
Yeah,
but also the euro
data too. I mean, that's what my mind too, which was it's definitely looming a recession, which is. That definitely will scare markets, and the riskiest shit will sell off.
Sheesh. Euro's up 3.6% in the weekly candle.
It's gonna find its lower high around the SMA 200 and then go to fucking nuke itself, as they're gonna print 800 billion euro to just fund their army and another 50 for funding AI.
Sounds bold.
Inshallah, 86-cent euro soon.
Yeah, it's going to get to 80-some cents. And again, these moves, for anyone that's watching, they take like a year, guys. Don't think we say the euro is going to go down. It's going to be next month.
Oh, yeah.
No. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't understand how Forexes work. And whenever you give a Forex target, like a Dixie for some certain point, and it bounces intraday, like, haha, you said it was going down, and now it's up.
It takes fucking forever. So let's be patient. Everything is playing out the way we've been saying. So far,
because
so good.
I'm one petty motherfucker. I cannot wait to see the reactions of euro pours whenever euro breaks under 90 cents.
Yeah,
we'll go to Europe.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see how it's Trump's fault. Then
it's gonna be an elite trip to Europe.
Exactly.
We're gonna open up a sister company called Elite Tripping Academy.
For the time we're there,
it can be taken either way. You can either be for trips, or you can either be on for LSD trips.
Both
trips. Yeah.
Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Sí. Let's get it, sir.
All right. So right now, a lot of my bias is based off of for short term on Bitcoin is going to be the weekly, because on our current move up, we went up to about $95,000. Pretty up only type of move, because that kind of stopped me out, and it was very annoying. But we went all the way up to the bottom, 38.2%, like basically tapped it to a T, along with our cluster of moving averages, the 9 and the 5, and got a perfect rejection from there. Not only that, but we dropped below to the 21 as well, and made a little bit of a doji right here. As long as we close below this 21 EMA and the 50%, you have to assume this is going to be bearish, and it's going to have a bearish outcome. Because whenever we lose the 21, we tend to go to the 55. And if we would lose this 21, which is at $90,000, very round number, exactly $90,000, high probability we're going to come back to the 55. And the 55 right now is sitting around $74,000 at $74,300. Right below that is the 78.6. Actually, this 55 is the $75,000. The 78.6 is around $74,000. And we have our momentum freshly turning down on the weekly with volatility turning up. Momentum is breaking into the bearish control zone. If you go on the weekly, the jewel has now gotten the pink crossing below the yellow, and the dark blue has dropped below the bullish control zone. Let's mark with a vertical line every time this happens. This is basically the only thing that's keeping me sticking to the stop losses on my shorts and not moving them. And then if I do get stopped out, I just shorted higher at resistance again, because I know that the weekly is in my favor.
Nice.
Base.
Let's do it right there. Short and hard, muchachos. Let's do it from whenever it got the cross. It's not quite close enough, but let's just mark it off. This one's going to be a little bit less powerful than the one we have now. And this should be it. Let's do it right there. This is every time that we got the jewel signal that we're getting now. Wow, it perfectly got the lower high. From the open to the bottom, 80% down. Just a tranquilo 80%.
Just a small 80% down. Not bad.
Here's the COVID dump, which is funny because even though people called it a black swan, statistically it was supposed to go down based off that jewel signal.
Isn't that insane? Like all money really, even DXY and bonds told you that 2020 something was going to happen, and it was just a coincidence that it was just a pandemic.
Yeah, you knew the move was coming, but you had yet to find out the excuse for it.
Exactly.
66% down, very tranquilo number. $52 down or 51% down. For all the people who were telling me they don't want to pay $130 a month for an indicator or $1,750 one time, how many of these do you need to make that up? 69% down.
Just one. Just one.
This is going to be one of the failure, not really a failure, just not as powerful as the other ones. And this is still a 31% move to the downside. So right now our minimum move is about 30%. How much have we dropped since we confirmed this? 18.5%? That's nothing. Let's do 31%. It brings us basically exactly down to this 100 EMA, sitting at about $64,000. Very nice how that works out. Let's do 50%, just out of funsies. What do you know? 50% comes right down to my bias at that 200 SMA at $45,000. Very beautiful. Very funny the way that works out. And now let's do that one in the momentum chart. I was going to do Dixie, but fuck it. Let's just do Dixie with the HPDR as well. That's a beautiful weekly candle to the downside. We're at a very logical bounce zone right at that 100 EMA. This is where I got that mid 104s from. Very, very likely, even if you're the most bearish bear there is on Dixie, very likely it bounces here. Especially since you're getting to very extreme areas from the HPDR. What's likely, though, is that you bounce somewhere from around this 104s. And as long as you're closing below 107.661, I would look at it as a bearish retest. I do think that it's going to maybe make one more swipe down to somewhere around the 103s area, like low 104s to high 103s. But I do think that's going to make a higher low on the macro and end up going up from there, especially if you look at it from the monthly. Monthly and the quarterly are now in a fresh uptrend where we've closed over these previous lower highs, and now what you get after a higher high is a higher low. So sure, this does look a little toppy right here, but we're just putting in a higher low. And if we were to go a little bit lower, which I do think is probably going to happen, probably somewhere around that 38.2% at around very, very low 104s, this is probably very, very high probability going to be where we're going to put in our next macro bottom. And then from there, I would expect these highs of around 115 to get broken, and I would expect somewhere around 120 to get hit. And we're also nearing that area on the weekly. We're getting to very, very extreme areas. 5-day is also getting to that 100 EMA. It is getting to a very, very high probability bounce on Dixie. Let's switch to the Tether. And now Tether dominance is very, very close into breaking into the bullish control zone with volatility support. And now you look at the weekly jewel, the weekly's pink is crossing over the yellow with light blue crossing over the bullish control zone. Let's mark with a vertical line every time that's happened. Pink cross below the yellow, above the yellow right there. Happened right there. Right there. Not as powerful as the one we have now, though. Also not as powerful as the one we have now. Or this is, yeah, this is that one. Let's do, not quite as powerful as the one we have now. And this one. Very few of them are going to be as powerful as the one that we have now. But let's see how much of a move up we got on Tether every single time we got those. This one got a little bit of a move down before going up. First, it moved up by about 13%, quite respectable. Moved down by 20%, and then upwards of about 35%. So I don't know if you could really call that a failure because you did get a 13% move to the upside, which would result in a quite devastating move on cryptos. This one from open, about 62% to the upside. Then you were still in profit. You never went into a loss. 175%. Then 220%. Oh. If Tether dominance is going up 220%, what is Bitcoin doing?
0. No, I'm just kidding.
Straight to 0. Quick correction to 0. 29% to the upside. So the minimum move so far right now is 13%, and the higher end move is 220%. Let's just not count that 220% move because I don't think that's going to happen. 150%. And remember, none of these are, very few of these are as powerful as the one that we have now. %. How much have we moved up from this current one? About 19%. So we have hit that minimum move. If we were to take it somewhere about 35% for that medium move, that put us at about just over 6.11%. Take it for the 50% move. '50s will put us right around this meme line at 6.9, 6.95 or 7%. So now that we see that Tether is in a bullish posturing, it gives us bias towards what Bitcoin is likely going to do. Then you look at this, where the weekly on Tether is solidly above that 38.2% breakout zone, which is currently at 4.83%. If we were to see last time that we broke above it on the weekly, we did not get a close above it since, let's see. Nope. Last time we got a close above it on the weekly was right here in May of 2022. That was right before the Luna dump. And right here, June 2022, when that Luna dump happened, we tapped all the way up to that 88.3%. Time before we closed over, right over here in December of 2021, right before the bear market started. So 2 times now that we have where we closed over the 38.2%, both of them led to very devastating dumps. One of them was in December of 2021 when we broke from the 50s down to 30K, and then was in summer of 2022 whenever we broke from about 48K down to 15K. Getting that same exact setup on Tether now. We're getting the pink crossing above the yellow on the jewel, breaking out of the bearish control zone, momentum getting into the bullish control zone, getting close over that, getting close to getting over that 38.2%. It just looks primed for a breakout on Tether, which would give you a breakdown on Bitcoin. This is going to be a bunch of max chop and fuckery in between before that scenario actually happens. It just gives you a lot more confidence that it's likely to play out to the downside for cryptos based on how Tether is looking. Check out the monthly. Monthly is giving you a little bit of a different story, but you do have 26 days and 9 hours to go. So this could change before then. As of right now, monthly momentum is to the upside on Tether dominance. But if you do end up losing this open right now, monthly open at $84,641, let's say $85,000 area, this monthly momentum is going to shift down. Then the dump is going to accelerate very heavily. And from there, you're likely going to go pretty much straight to that 21 EMA at around $67,000, $66,000. The jewel right now is giving a little bit of a concerning signal if you are bullish. It is now starting to once again curve over, lose that buy signal, and now shifting to a neutral signal. And from there, you're very likely to get that dark blue sell signal. And the last time you got a dark blue sell signal, let's just mark it with a vertical line when you got a neutral sell signal. Right there. Neutral signal right there. Neutral signal right there. This time around, you completely skip the neutral signal and went straight to sell. Let's just do it right there. This is not going to be as powerful because it's a little bit lower. Let's do it right there and right there. How much of a move did we get on Bitcoins after the neutral signal on the monthly? This one doesn't look like much. Probably going to be a decent amount. Oh yeah, 49% to the downside. Free tranquilo number. 81% to the downside. COVID dump. First, you pumped about 46%, and then you dumped 46%. That was a wash. This one, 51% to the downside. You had these setups before every one of these dumps, which were supposedly supposed to be black swans. Like the COVID dump, you had to set up, and then whenever Tesla stopped accepting Bitcoin and you had a 50% dump, that was also what do you call it?
Another
Jewel
setup.
told you that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not really a black swan. 71% to the downside. Is this the current one? Yeah. No. On this last one, probably not that much, but let's see. About 30% to the downside. And now the current one, right over there. How much should be dropped? About 20%. So if we were to take the minimum move of 29% or 30%, brings us to about, hey, very low $70,000 area. Goes along very nicely with the bias. Switch to the quarterly. This is also fits the bias even nicer, where you're seeing momentum shift down on the quarterly. You're getting a drop below the moving average. And the last time we got momentum dropping below the moving average on the quarterly was right over here in January of 2022, when price went from $48,000 down to about $17,585. Quite the devastating move. And we're getting volatility support with momentum dropping below the moving average, just like we got then. And we're getting a similar rejection of the median like we did then. And what we usually get after rejection of the median is a move down to that 5 EMA, which is sitting at about $74,000. Very, very bias filling. And then from there, once you lose that area, you usually drop down towards the bottom 38.2, which is going to change. But right now, it's sitting at about $58,000. And then the 2 week is also bearish with momentum into the bearish control zone, volatility flipping up, and the jewel's giving you a God mode sell signal right now, right below this critical zone. And to put on top of that, we've lost this 38.2%. We've got almost perfect retest of it and a rejection. The only saving grace right now is this 21 EMA, but losing this 38.2% makes it very unlikely that 21 is going to hold, and makes it likely that we're going to drop below that. If you would show last time when we lost 38.2% on the weekly, it was right over here. We lost it there. How much of it moved down did we get? Immediately, we got a move down of about 17%. We got a little bit of a pump, about 7.7%. Then we got another move down of 24%. So if we were to take it from there, from this loss of this 38.2%. Fuck. We've currently dropped about 13%. So let's drop that a little bit more. This is very close to that very low $70,000 area. Also very interesting. And right down to that 78.6%. The other time around, we lost 38.2%. Very interesting. We did not lose it a single other time this bull market. The other time before we lost it was right before the Luna dump. Very interesting. Let's see, do we have a God mode sell signal at that point too? We did not. 5-day, as well as in the bearish control zone with volatility pointed to the upside. The only hopium now is that this 55 EMA does hold, but in order to mark any type of local bottom, we would have to close over this lower high at about $99,520. Basically, you'd have to reclaim $100,000 for this to be back into bullish posturing and up only once again. But it seems very unlikely at this point that you're going to reclaim $100,000, especially since this cluster of EMAs right now is resistance, the 9, the 5, and the 21, and they're clustered right into the same area, making it a very significant zone. 2 days right now is starting to expand a little bit on momentum, getting above the moving average, still within bearish control zone, and volatility is right now dropping, giving you an idea that this is likely going to be a lower high bounce. And we're getting a perfect rejection of this 21 EMA, pretty aggressive move to the downside. And as of right now, this 55 is going to be resistance. And this will silver cross in the next maybe 1 or 2 opens maximum, as long as it's closing below $92,200, which right now we're about $4,000 or $3,600 below that. In the next 1 or 2, which gives us a maximum of about 3 days, this is going to silver cross to the downside, going to give us a perfect rejection to the silver cross, and then likely from there we dump straight to the 200, which is at about $73,000. Very biased fitting. Daily right now is fitting into the idea of a short-term bounce with momentum breaking up. Volatility is currently to the downside, making it very high probabilities of a lower high. And then if you look at this, what goes along with that is momentum right now is going above all of these areas right here, whereas price is making a lower high, giving you possible hidden bearish divergence on the daily. And this is what you usually want to see on your lower highs before you get a massive dump. And the way to confirm this hidden bearish divergence is you close this previous candle below 81,463. Then you're going to dump probably pretty fast towards $75,000 and eventually 72s with that hidden bearish divergence. Hopium right now as a jewel is giving you a God mode buy signal, and it is breaking out of the bearish control zone, although this likely leads into a lower high based off of that momentum setup. And what's going along with that idea is the 4-hour, with 4-hour now getting to very extreme areas to the upside on momentum. We're getting above, are we? No, not quite. Very, very, very slight lower. Almost gave us some hidden bearish divergence, but not quite. But now we are starting to get momentum flipping to the downside on the 4-hour, getting to very extreme areas. Volatility starting to contract, making it very likely we're getting to a very extreme area. And what also goes along with that is that we're tapping the 95% of the HPDR. Very unlikely you get continuation from here, and you're just marking another lower high in a series of lower highs. And if you look at Tether on the 4-hour, Tether is getting to the 97.5% to the downside, making it a very high probability bounce area. So now that you see Bitcoin is at resistance, Tether is at support. Very unwise to be bullish on Bitcoin in this area. What's more likely is that Bitcoin pulls back from resistance and Tether pulls up from support. And Bitcoin could come all the way back down from a rejection of this 95%, swing failure pattern of these previous highs, rejection of this 100. At a minimum from this setup, you would expect to move down to this 38.2%, which right now is at about $85,000. That would wipe all of this move to the upside. This $85,000 to $85,000 area is basically going to be extremely critical for bulls to hold. If they don't hold it, we're likely going to break these lows of around $78,000 pretty fast, and we're probably going to capitulate at that point. Ding!
So Bitcoin's looking pretty bullish, huh?
Basically. Indeed, it's looking amazing.
Max
What do
long
you
and
mean? It's going to $180,000. It's going to $180,000. I know that because some guy made a shirt. Some people made a shirt of a guy that said that he was going to go in $180,000 and said that he was right already. And they did that like a year ago. So,
oh, it's impossible to not do that then.
yeah, exactly.
It's not going to $180,000 until George gets alcoholic poisoning.
Don't say that. That could be sooner than you think. So we might go there by the end of the year, you're saying?
End of the month. Another piece of very sombering information is notice all of these cycle highs on Bitcoin. Cycle high, high on the RSI. Cycle high, higher high on the RSI. Lower high, higher high. Cycle high, higher high on price, lower high on the RSI. Cycle high, higher high on price, lower high on the RSI. We were forming 3 drives of bearish divergence on the quarterly. And right now, to confirm it, you'll have to close below 58,890. A little difficult right now, but on this next month quarterly candle, it's going to be below 78,300. And that's quite bad. That would bring you at a minimum, absolute minimum to that middle line of the RSI. Puts you at $43,800. Very biased feeling. Monthly has already confirmed the bearish divergence, and every single time you've gotten bearish divergence before, you've gotten a minimum of a 50% dump and a cycle end. We confirmed it on this last monthly closure, and right now we'd have a minimum target of before a bounce of somewhere around this bullish control zone, which puts it right around $75,000. Very, very biased feeling. And then the next target would be the neutral zone, which right now is at about 42.5. Also very biased feeling. And monthly is very close to giving us that setup with volatility dropping below 15%. Last time volatility was this low on the monthly was right before a United States setup of 2023, and before that was the Luna dump. 2 weeks has confirmed 3 drives of bearish divergence, and it's going to be active as long as we're below $99,520, so $100,000. And the next target off of that would be right around this bullish control zone, which is at about $77,000. Weekly is putting in possible hidden bullish divergence, slight bullish hopium, but it's just a possibility as long as you're closing below $99,520. If you can confirm that hidden bullish divergence, very big if, that likely sends you up to new all-time highs. But as of right now, it's just a possibility and not confirmed, not even close to confirmed.
It enters on the weekly there. It enters the bearish control zone at under 85.
About an 84.6.
Okay.
And right now we have many periods of 0% volatility. So once this does fire off, it's going to be an aggressive move. And we are just now starting to get over the moving average on the volatility with a pretty sharp move to the downside, making it a lot more likely we will get this volatility expansion to the downside. 5-day has confirmed bearish divergence as well, and it's going to be confirmed as long as we're closing below $99,520. We are getting a little bit of a bounce at this 21 EMA and this bearish control zone, with volatility expanding on this move to the downside, making it a lot more likely this is going to end up playing further to the downside. And our next target from there would be the bearish critical zone, which is at about $42,800. Very biased feeling. And the EMA target based off this divergence, if you break below 78.3, would be somewhere around $70,000 to $71,000. There's not even a possibility of bullish divergence right now in the daily, because we dropped below on our RSI than all these previous points. So there is a possibility of hitting bullish divergence right now on the 4-hour, because momentum did drop lower than these previous lows, but price actually made a higher low. And to confirm it right now, you would have to close above $90,688. Close above that, then you do have some hopium in the system, and you're probably going to pump from there towards somewhere around the middle zone, which is at about 92.5, and you likely go from there to like 95s. And at that point, it's going to the move to the downside is going to be significantly in question, and it's going to seem a lot more bullish in that scenario. I was still short 95.5. I'm just going to be a little scared and clenched my cheeks while I do it. Ding. Because if you don't clench those cheeks, you're going to be introduced to a very, very girthy green dildo in your Angus. On the quarterly, we have momentum to the upside currently, as long as we're above $60,600. But on this next quarterly open, this light pivot likely does change whenever it gets into the critical zone. It'd be very interesting if this pivot goes to like $110,000. That'd basically be the nail in the coffin. Monthly is already flipping down, already flipped down at the last closure, and the pivot went up towards around $102,000. Kind of bearish to see that. And we've confirmed stochastic bearish divergence on the monthly closure after we flip down, with momentum dropping below 15%, which gives us that setup. And if volatility starts expanding from here, statistically, it's going to be to the downside because momentum is down below $102,000. Last time we had monthly volatility expansion to the downside was right over here. Let's just be super conservative and take it from the candle closure. From there, we still dumped another 58%. That's quite a bit much. If you were to dump that from here, it brings us basically down to my bear market bottom target. 2 week is now also flipping down, also confirming many drives of bearish divergence, and we're going to be pointed down as long as we're below $99,300. As of right now, volatility is still contracting, but once we drop below $78,000, this volatility is likely to start expanding, and that's going to be very ugly. Weekly is giving you that setup with many periods of 0% volatility. As of right now, momentum is pointed heavily to the downside, basically free falling, and it's going to be down as long as you're below $102,100. And we have a derp of death along with 0% volatility. Last time we had a derp of death with 0% volatility was right over here. And then we dumped how much? About 28% to the downside after that. 5 days with that setup right now. Volatility expanding from below 15%. Started expanding right about here. And then we've dumped from there about 16%. Not even close to the average move. Let's take it down to 25%. That would be right around $68,000. Very interesting. Whereas my short-term or mid-term bounce zone is somewhere around $67,000. Where around there is where we likely get a very significant bounce. And bounce is not the same thing as a reversal. Very likely just that is a bounce. 2 day, we're starting to see momentum start to shift to the upside. We're still getting volatility expansion, but the 2 day is very, very close to putting in that silver cross to the downside, making it very likely this is going to be a lower high, and momentum will be up as long as we're above $85,300. Daily as well as to the upside, and we're going to be pointed up as long as we're above $83,500. This is where the story likely changes. No, interesting. Did not. But on this next open, it likely does. We should mark off with the alert for the next 31 minutes whenever this 4 hour closes. Because right now we are contracting from many, many periods of 100% volatility while we're getting this move to the upside. So this technically is bearish to see that because that's telling you this is a mean reversion. And we are pointed up as long as we're above $86,000. But on this next open, we're going to enter into the bullish control zone. And then from there, this pivot very likely goes up. And then we're going to get our idea if the lower high is in right now or if we're going to go higher or not. My bias right now is in this next 31 minutes, this pivot is going to go up, telling us that this lower high is likely in. And we're likely going to go down from there. Let's see what if this gives us any bias. Let's go to the 2 hour. And it does indeed. 2 hour is now flipping down on momentum. And it's going to stay to the downside as long as we're below $88,550. We're just below that number right now by a hair. So right now, you're getting one of those rare events in Bitcoin when basically all of your time frames are aligned in the same direction as each other. They're all agreeing on downside. You have quarterly hitting quarterly bearish divergence possible. You have monthly bearish divergence confirmed on the RSI and the stochastic. You have 2 week bearish divergence confirmed on the RSI and the stochastic. They would all give you a target of somewhere around low 70s to get a first bounce, and then somewhere around 66, 67 to get a bigger bounce. Then eventually it would lead you to somewhere around $42,000 to $45,000 for your eventual bottom. Right now, what the hopium is that on the lower term time frames, the momentum is starting to shift up, like the daily and the 2 day, giving you a lower high idea. Probabilities are that has played out now. If you look on the weekly HPDR, we have tapped exactly to the bottom 38.2%, with our 2-hour momentum starting to shift down, 4-hour very close to shifting down, making it highly likely that the lower high is in right now. And then the next maybe 3 days max, we will have a silver cross confirmed to the downside on the 2-day, giving us a perfect retest of that silver cross. And then probably from there, probably capitulates towards 73, a little bit of a bounce, 66s, bigger bounce. And that bounce from 66s could take us all the way up to maybe $73,000, $78,000. I would expect that bounce to fail unless we reclaim 100,000, and then we probably go down to the 40s. Reclaim 100,000, then we probably go up to 140s, 150s pretty fast. You can go up or down.
Clean.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. I'm going to bet up, and then I'm going to bet down. I think that's what I'm going to do. And then down, and then up.
Beautiful. Hopefully not over 92 to stop me out.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah. So I wanted to start this off because I feel like, I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about stocks right now. And, ES1 is looking interesting to me. I like looking at the S&P 500 futures because I feel like there's more volume involved. I think there is even. And so let's dissect this, because this kind of will gauge at least my outlook on, what markets could be doing within the next coming weeks. So we got that move down to support right here at 5,300. That was a big zone. We talked about there being right around the EMA 34 in the weekly. That's important because that weekly EMA 34 in this point proved to us that is solid support along with the 21. The fact that we honestly deviated all the major moving averages is not a good sign. What occurred here was we lost the weekly 9 and we solidly kept rejecting that. We see here, even on this last rejection, this is what caused us essentially to dump dramatically. Why this is interesting to me is because while this is occurring, we're actually getting a pretty big weekly setup, something that really hasn't occurred since, August of 2017. Let's see actually what occurred there. So this was an upside move, and this actually printed. Once we closed, it printed us a 14% move, which is not bad for ES1 at all. 14% move. Right now with the posturing of the weekly, if this starts expanding, this would be down. A 14% move, let's just say it starts expanding somewhere around here, would put us closer to, let's see, interesting. Actually, that $5,000 level. That is interesting to me because I would have thought it would be closer to the weekly EMA 100. Until then, it's right now, ES1 is looking very rejective to me. It's, obviously we're not closing the best weekly candle. And it doesn't mean we're necessarily going to dump into next week. We very easily can rally up and test the 21, especially when we've seen here that this is massive support. This has, a big bias for Bitcoin, though, because if this is starting to have a pullback and go down, we've seen this do really well. It's given risk on a really good environment. If this goes bad, it's just going to bleed into everything else is going to start looking bad. You can even see here on the NASDAQ. Okay, this is not. Oh, no, it is. You can even see here, we're even getting a weekly volatility setup, and we're breaking above the moving average into this week. It's just looming to me like a major move on stocks is occurring here potentially. And, I have been looking only at crypto, but it potentially could be giving us some easy short setups into next week. But as long as we're closing this week below the week under the EMA 34, you really have to start looking at this as a breakdown. And it's going to give us the next target around that 5,256. That's right around the weekly EMA 100. It's a big zone. We've seen big bounces from that point. We should be gauging at least some reaction there. Now, I'm curious to see what the HPDR looks like. And we can see here we're actually in that weekly breakdown now. It's even confirming that. Weekly median has shifted up. And we're breaking the 38.2% to the downside. Let me see when the last time this occurred. Yeah, when we broke down, it was right here. Right into this zone here, and we can see from that breakdown, we'll be conservative with it. Yeah, that gave us a 7.53% move down. That's interesting because I feel like that would put us right around that weekly EMA 100. Yeah. and the 95%. So I'm starting my analysis off just, letting everyone know stocks are looking pretty bearish right now. We haven't seen this kind of like, and at least in my opinion, this kind of short setup in a long time on the weekly. The fact that we're now wiping and losing that EMA 34 while we're getting a BBWP setup really does make you have to wonder, if Bitcoin's just front running the inevitable breakdown. Now let's go and look at corn and let's see if we're rich, because corn has been very annoying this week essentially. And so what we see now is, into today, that was annoying. I got stopped out. I'll be honest. It was annoying. I got stopped out break even, of course. But regardless, annoying. We're getting multi-$1,000 swings up and down. It's pretty impressive, actually. I mean, from this point, we moved down $9,000, and then we moved up another $9,000 all within this week. It's been pretty dramatic. But what does this tell me? Well, whenever you're getting these very big time frame BBWP setups, for example, like the weekly, before these expand, often you get this very predatory environment where longs and shorts both get screwed, and it doesn't make for an easy short or long in that case. And we can even go here in this example, when we started to break out, what occurred right in this zone? Well, we can see here from this reset, we got a bounce. This was a 15% move to the upside, leading then to a, what was it, 7%? Yeah, like a 7% move to the downside, inevitably leading to that breakout. Here's a better example. We had, I remember this environment, very boring, but Bitcoin would just move very aggressively. We'd pump 22%, and then we'd end up dumping 20%. And then here, from that point, we'd go up another 26%. And then from that top, we went down another, 20% and so forth. And why I'm showing this is because this is telling me we're reaching a very important time where this is like these big moves that we're getting right now are telling me that honestly, this weekly BBWP is getting primed to break out. We're getting the same exact market conditions as we've had before, which is just max chop and max volatility, where it makes it very easy. And you can make a lot of money if you trade this in and out. But if you can notice here, swings, like if you were swing short, let's say from here, just max chop for you. And it would tease you, right? You get these major dumps. But that's the point, because with these setups, it's often once they start firing off, specifically with the weekly, I mean, generally you just kind of go. You can see it here, minimal pullback. I mean, after putting in an epic rally, we had a less than 1% candle down, reset it, broke out, and then even here, epic rally. And they do that, I feel like, because it's just they don't want us to make money, and it's just a lot harder because when you, let's say, don't have the stats in your favor, you would be flip-flopping a lot. And that's why I do like those pivots that Foreign gives us, because it can help us at least identify, oh no, we are statistically bearish in the weekly, the monthly, and it can kind of at least eliminate the noise for me. So where we're at now is, I mean, with volatility, it doesn't change though. So, we were talking about last stream, $91,000 being a very important spot. Also, we talked about the 4-hour EMA 100. I was talking about last occurrence where, let me get this rainbow chart off. Last occurrence where we essentially reclaimed that 4-hour EMA 100 and then lost it. We essentially rejected hard. So last stream, I was talking about the scenario here where, we were holding above that point. We lost it, and it was just not looking the best. No, actually, my apologies. This was the example I was giving us, essentially. Reclaimed, lost it, dumped. Here we see in stream where we did reclaim it, but essentially once we lost that 4-hour EMA 100, that was my sign, which was, okay, I need to gauge the bearish retest here, punt a short, and go down. And it works, but we didn't get that follow through to that juicy TP I wanted. And I do think that's simply because, this is where like lower time frame trading, how can you get those big moves down? Like this was a big move, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to get that like juicy 20% dump from that 4-hour bearish retest. often you have to do it on a daily. And so if we actually look at what occurred today, we see, okay, we reclaimed this zone, specifically the 91,000. We lost it. We rejected the daily 9. This is significant because we still are in a silver cross on the daily, which is essentially the 21 flipping under the 55, along with the 9 under the 21. So what we see now is the silver cross is still activated, and we understand, okay, well, the daily didn't fully reject us, and we understand the SMA 200 still holding. Give us a better chance of us going back up to that 91K. That made a lot of sense to me because then you have a deviation trade. You know, you come in, all the shorts are horny like me, get out, stopped like me and Fawn, and then that's the real move based on the daily. While then what you'll get with that is then BBWP on the daily resetting after essentially this epic move up, it approaching the extremes. So that's what I'm looking at now. You have confluence with that though, based on last stream. 91,000 was always a very important spot. Visually, you can see that. You know, we talked about that being a first major rejection point, 91 to 92,000, if not then 95s. And until proven otherwise, I'm still going to be on that camp. Whereas, okay, we did that SFP. Now this is the bearish retest. Now we'll be wrong on this. If we actually start getting back above, specifically on a daily close around 91,500, to me, it'll start looking like, yeah, we're probably going to make a move up to 93,000. And at that point, you have to really wonder if we're going to go back up to 95.5s. So that's kind of where we're at now. I want to see, though, because I do believe Wednesday is statistically the most bearish day for Bitcoin.
Yeah, 40% bullish probabilities, so 57% bearish.
Okay, good. So then that gives me good confluence of this. We essentially got the bearish retest. You know, bears that essentially slept in today, didn't catch the easy short. They're now stopped, and no one wants to, you know, after you like get a move like this and you're up a good amount of money, you just kind of feel dirty when you short 2% lower than like, you know, a logical entry. So for now, it'd make a lot of sense then. We did that. We got everyone out. Let me reset that. You know, and now we got the bearish retest on the daily per the TA. We've got the silver cross to the downside on that, you know, the retest essentially. I think this is ready to nuke. Most logical spot for me would be, you know, gauging essentially this zone. If we gauge this zone here on the lower time frames, it's important. So remember that 4-hour EMA 100 was right around to that 91K. Made it easy for me to say, okay, well, even though I got stopped, I'm not aggressively shorting this and FOMOing back in. I'm getting into a better entry with possibly better size. And my invalidation can be a lot tighter because shorts in this zone you can literally have either an invalidation where if we start reclaiming this, you can cut, or you could just have it where I had it, which was 92,000, 91,000, my apologies, essentially March 3rd's high. We don't want to see Bitcoin get back above that high, which is at 91,000. But we see here that the 4-hour is rejecting the EMA 100. After we fell through, we came up and hit that. We go and view actually the 12-hour as well. You'll actually see that the EMA 34 crept up right around that zone as well. So I was getting a lot of confluence of, yes, this was an annoying rally. Yes, bulls are horny for the higher low gear, but still the weekly trend is down and the monthly pivot is freshly down. With that monthly bearish divergence, I have to be gauging this as just short opportunities. As terrible as it is, especially around tripping profits or getting stopped out, I still have to be gauging this as an opportunity because of just where we're at on the chart, which is the 5 days breaking down. This rally up that we, you know, kind of overshot, went up to almost 95K, essentially retested the 5-day EMA 9. I do believe also the median. No, not even close to the median on this chart. Median's all the way up here. But regardless, still, we are in that breakdown posturing, retested the 5-day EMA 9, which, you know, has been solid support. I mean, through this move up, you know, I want to start seeing this start moving and turning red, in my opinion, closing below that EMA 34 before the 5-day candle closes. But what I was saying is you want to really be gauging these short opportunities and watching very closely. Why market is going to make it hard for us to not be able to short and hold shorts is because of just the setup we're getting. The 5-day is still expanding, as Farin mentioned. These give big setups. 30 to 35% is not definitely a number to, you know, laugh about. That's like life-changing money if you can catch that trade. You know, we have that expanding along with potentially the weekly, giving us the itchings of it wanting to expand. We see it's now breaking above the moving average, which is important because I do believe once this weekly starts firing off, I do think that's really when the fun can start. I do think that the weekly firing off will very quickly take us down to this, you know, zone right around the $73,000 to $71,000. I do think essentially if we start losing this, that's where you're going to start seeing Bitcoin capitulate. And that's where then the monthly could play in. And that's why we're possibly getting a setup now on the monthly. And it makes sense. I mean, you've never had ever in Bitcoin's history, you know, a move where, let me just, before I say that, made the high, came up, boom, boom. Yeah, I mean, you've just never, I'll say this, you've never had a time in Bitcoin's history where you been in this environment. We have no data with price history in this 80,000 range. And I'll say this $80,000 range is terrible. This 80, 70, $90,000 range, we don't have a lot of data. As you can see here, price essentially just slingshotted up. But you're also, if you end up coming back down to this zone, what you have right around that 73K is the 2021 cycle high. If Bitcoin ends up losing this 2021 cycle high, you have to then be gauging essentially this range. And what I find interesting, specifically with Farm's analysis, was we kept seeing, I do believe it was like the $46,000 to $48,000 number appear quite often. For like kind of like a worst case scenario potentially. Well, what we see is if we start losing this $69,000 level, this would put us back in this range here where technically speaking, if we're just trading off meme lines, the bottom of this range would be $47,000. It's not totally out of the question when we go engage 2021. Reclaimed 48K, epic rally up, rejected 69,000, epic rally down. It's a range. That's all it is. It's interesting to see that because, you know, even though we're short bias, we very well still, if I'm going to close around here, we still could go down is the point. And that's why there's no FOMO here. If we start losing the 69,000, that's pretty much where I can confidently say we can just pack things up for Bitcoin. It's over. We're probably going to enter at least a multi-month chop consolidation and down, if not a few years. So, you know, with that, now we just really want to gauge today. Ideally, if you're short now in this bearish retest slash $91,000, you know, hit slash the 4-hour EMA 100, etc., you want to be gauging this daily now to turn red. You kind of want this chop to stop. You want bulls to get trapped here, shorts to close and get stopped, which they have. And you kind of just want this to start nuking now. You'll know, though, in my opinion, the reason I flipped to this chart was you'll know Bitcoin's going to go down, in my opinion, if we start losing that 86,500. Now, that 86,500 is an interesting point specifically for this new range we're kind of in right now. I'm noticing nice moves occur down when we lose it. Nice moves occur up when we reclaim it. And this even held true last night, right? Bitcoin rallied up, we dumped, we came down to that zone, which coincidentally lined up with the 4-hour EMA 9, got an epic rally up, hit the EMA 100, after, of course, reclaiming the 34. So that's why I like the moving averages. Very clean trading here. But now it would make a lot of sense. We got to start losing this 4-hour EMA 9 and specifically this 86,500. That then would look really good for me. Once we start getting back under 86,500, it's back on the move for 73,000. As long as we're above there, though, it's questionable, and we have to really be clenching and hoping that bears take control here, start flexing, and nuke us down. I want 86,500 to get lost, ideally today. Another easy area too, where you'll know we're going to essentially break down, is if we start losing that SMA 200 on the daily. It's been a pretty big spot for Bitcoin. We've been talking about that, you know, logical place for bounces. I didn't think we'd bounce this hard from this point, but that's just how Bitcoin is. If we start losing this SMA 200, that'll be really bad for Bitcoin. The last occurrences have led to essentially capitulation. You can see here, this was a really big occurrence, which was in August of 2024, where, yeah, once we lost that SMA 200, Bitcoin essentially dumped 20% in 2 days. we see here as well, SFP, the daily SMA 200, and then it dumped 17%. And then even these lower dumps, this was still like a 5% move, like a 7% move, etc. Remember, there's not a lot of times where we've gone below the SMA 200. So it's a big zone, and it makes sense that bulls are defending that right now. But that's kind of my criteria where if we start losing the daily SMA 200, we're below obviously 86,500. It's really then going to start looking like Bitcoin is going to start moving towards 73,000 and possibly lower. I mean, as Farin mentioned, if we just view the monthly and viewed on the HPDR, I mean, per the HPDR, you're technically here getting a move. You're technically getting a measured move here, where this will take you essentially to $63,000. Rejecting the median, obviously the next move is close to that EMA 21, so that's assuming we lose the monthly 9, but you're technically getting the next move around 63,400. So lose 86,500, great chance we're going to go and test the daily SMA 200. Lose the SMA 200, that's where I really get bricked up for my short, and I can sit comfortably because I understand that we should stay below that. If we start SFPing the daily SMA 200, I'm going to cut the shorts. That's generally, usually results in mean reversion bounces at the very least. SMA 200, deviation, move up. Even here, we still moved up slightly. This, I guess, not the best example, but here, reclaimed it, moved up. So, if you lose that, you want to stay under it. That's just kind of the bear market criteria. It's very easy to gauge. I mean, if we go back to here, what was an easy gauge for the bear market? Well, just gauging the SMA 200. Okay, short, printed. I'm not going to short until we go to the SMA 200. Short, printed. I'm not going to short until we go to the SMA 200. Oh, this got reclaimed, going to long. It could literally just be that easy. So, this is a very, very crucial time for Bitcoin. Everything right now is starting to really line up for a capitulation scenario. Nothing has changed in my view. I've been very bearish on Bitcoin for a while now, and that really started to occur because Tether dominance was telling us the story before it occurred. Tether dominance was looking extremely bullish. We were essentially holding this channel breakout while also silver crossing on the daily while getting a pretty nice BBWP setup. This really made me gauge Tether dominance very closely. It wasn't until we got that 5-day expansion where it really then started to put everything in perspective, whereas, oh, this possibly is going to bleed into Bitcoin's 5-day BBWP expanding. And remember, this is nice to gauge because we haven't had a 5-day BBWP expansion to the downside in a very long time on Bitcoin. So this is a great example on why we can use Tether dominance in confluence to our own trading on Bitcoin. I know it's kind of controversial when people say, I know people that say, oh yeah, it's a waste of time. You shouldn't look at Tether dominance, blah, blah, blah. I just disagree. And this helped me literally get bearish at the most perfect time. But then also too, the weekly confirming that this is now firing off was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. So, we see we have a lot of congestion here at that 5.2 to 5.3% on Tether dominance. Makes sense. Obviously we haven't tested that weekly EMA 100 in a very long time. We want to be very cautious now here because as long as we can just stay above that 4.69%, we have a greater chance of going all the way back up to the 5.6%. That's going to be a crucial level for Tether dominance. Crucial because we can see anytime we get back above that 5.6%, specifically on a weekly close, and hold it, that has generally led to parabolic moves on Tether dominance. This is your capitulation scenario, is when Tether dominance gets above 5.6%. And there's not a lot of data where, we have been above it, but with the data we do have, it's solid. I mean, here we see it broke above, retested, broke out, came all the way down, tested as support, broke out, tested the all-time highs again. Here even got a nice bounce or reaction. Curious to see what that was, just from 5.6%, let's see. And that was still a 16% move before going down, of course. And then even here you can see, when Bitcoin was I do believe we went down, I think in August 2024 to the 49Ks, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was right when Tether dominance was testing again that zone here. Wait. No, my apologies. What sparked that move was because we reclaimed 5.6%. Then that gave us that move to the 6%. So the 5.6% is massive. Just like what I said on Bitcoin with the daily SMA 200, same exact thing, but with the weekly, it's just stronger. And so you see the weekly SMA 200 right there. Getting back above that would be insane for Tether dominance. Anytime we actually haven't been above that really ever, only in this occurrence, actually. So only in this tiny occurrence where Bitcoin went to 49,000 is the only time where the weekly got above the SMA 200. So that's pretty massive to me, actually, seeing that. If we start reclaiming that, that's going to be a major, major cause of concern for me if you're a bull. I mean, even on the HPR view, you can see just the gap up to the 78.6% is massive. But the weekly is important for now. We're going to gauge today's closure, of course. I think we should all be gauging the week, this weekly close on Tether dominance in Bitcoin. We see here Tether dominance right now is breaking out with with BBWP confirming that on the weekly view. As long as we stay above the above the 38.2%, which is, I'll give you guys a number. That's right now at 4.83%. This is in breakout posturing, and we're going to have a greater chance of going back up to the 5.3% minimum, possibly testing 5.6%, reclaiming that. We know what comes. But why it's important to view it on Bitcoin as well is because nothing really has changed on Bitcoin. We understood too that the weekly EMA 9 was very important for Bitcoin. You can see here that, it was pretty well respected this whole bull market. It's not until you start losing it where you get the chop, of course, but when you're in bull market mode, up only, you respect it and hold it and form higher lows off of it. You can see here that once we started to lose it, and remember, we talked about this was a cause of concern here, and we've been solidly rejecting it ever since. And this weekly close is no different. And why we need to watch this weekly close is, because we potentially could be losing that EMA 34, which would be pretty dramatic for Bitcoin, because we see the last occurrence where we lost a weekly EMA 34 and got follow through from that. Not we lost it and then pumped up, but got follow through was here. And we can see from that zone, and I'll be conservative. I'll take it from the EMA 34, not the wick high. Let's see what that gave us. I mean, yeah, that dumped us 8.78% the next week. That's why this close is going to be very crucial, because we start losing that EMA 34. Again, it's just going to solidify a big dumps coming. Per my system, it would be the weekly EMA 100, which is sitting right around that $60,000 region. We just obviously don't want to disregard this zone, but that's just how it is. But let's say the EMA 34 holds, then that's fine. What we could then find ourselves in is just another stupid range on Bitcoin, which is we're bouncing from the 34 and possibly rejecting off the 21, which makes sense to me because that's right around the 90,000. And it just could be keeping the overall downtrend. And this just slow bleed down is annoying for shorts and very destructive for longs, because it's constantly baiting, always baiting. So we understand here this was the last occurrence where we got follow through of that weekly EMA 34. I'm curious. Let me just see another one. Okay, here we are. Lost it, rejected, and then you can just see how important this spot is for Bitcoin. Again, another 7% dump. That's interesting to me. That's coming up a lot. But again, that held us for weeks down. It wasn't really until we reclaimed it where fun started to occur in the markets. So again, that's why this week is very important for Bitcoin, because if we start losing that EMA 34 on the weekly, it's going to be, in my opinion, like possibly a front runnable move to us losing the monthly 9. You can see here that once we actually did lose that EMA 34, this was it. This gave us the clean move to that EMA 100, which is currently right now sitting in the low 60,000s on Bitcoin. This was a lot nicer, and this led us down 31%. We tried to reclaim it, SFP'd it, and then again had the nuke. So no matter how you look at it, the EMA 34 is very important for Bitcoin. We want to see that get lost if you're a bear, essentially. And that way then we can desolidify any divergence hope here of us going up, where bulls are going to be saying, oh, it's possibly a higher low without the higher high, even though we are in a confirmed downtrend on the weekly. But we want to really gauge the weekly, because remember, the monthly, and I'll still say this for bulls, because we still are holding the monthly 9 in this whole bull market. We've held it in this entire bull market. It's been an opportunity. So far, what we see is we have essentially bounced from that point. But I do still look at that as very bearish, because what this has essentially done is we closed above the EMA 9 on the monthly. We opened this monthly, we dumped. We then used this as a spring. We then got finally the monthly EMA 9 move, because what would have concerned me is if this monthly opened and we just pumped up, leaving that kind of EMA 9 in question, because generally speaking, with a move or a level as strong as this, you always have to gauge your reaction. There's generally you always gauge your reaction with like a monthly 9, especially when you haven't hit it in a very long time. So there's always some reaction with these levels. What I like is the fact that we open in this month, hit it, use it as a spring trap. This could be a part of the bear trap. Use this as a spring, moved up really hard, put in is possibly a bearish retest on the monthly. It's looking that way until proven otherwise. Got the SFP, this got the bearish retest. And so that tells me if we end up really losing, let's say that daily SMA 200, and let's say the monthly starts going back to the EMA 9, 81,600, there's a very good chance we're going to actually capitulate at that point. Where we already got the bounce, we already have a lot of long stops here. If Bitcoin ends up churning this monthly red again, which we're very volatile, this was literally red, now it's green. So this definitely can happen today or tomorrow. This is probably going to lead to the capitulation, and that's probably what's going to take us down to the 70s, just in my opinion. So you want to gauge that. Now we have kind of a zone. So 91,000 is very important for Bitcoin. You'll be gauging that simply off that 4-hour EMA 100. Often, not every time, but often, nice moves occur when we reclaim it. But when we lose it, generally it makes for easy short opportunities. This whole way down, this is kind of evident. So we lost it, we rejected it, we dumped, we've rallied up, we've SFP'd it. Is this it now? That's kind of what my view is. Reclaim 91,000, probably we're going to test 95.5. As long as we're under 91K, specifically March 3rd's high, I'm going to be looking at this as corrective. We have now an easy move down to 85 to 86,500, which lines up with Farn's analysis. We start losing this will be our confirmation of, okay, we're probably then going to go to the daily SMA 200. And that's where you really want to start gauging and watching closely, because if we start losing this zone, this could be your trigger for either, if you're not short, to possibly take a low leverage short on that retest and target 73s. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I am short on Bitcoin currently. Yeah, that's it. I can share this. Range trading this, we'll see, lose the 86,000, very fast move up to 81s. So that's all I have. Hopefully the shorts work out this time. And that's it. I'm hoping that we can end this chop. I hate this $80,000 range. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah. If I get stopped out one more time, it's over.
Yep. This is all President Trump's fault. I knew I was going to get presidentially liquidated yesterday. I knew it. And I begged him on Twitter, and he didn't care. God damn.
He was like, that Alejandro fellow, I'm going to liquidate him specifically.
I'm going to liquidate his ass. He's going to be liquidated. Have you seen anyone get liquidated? Because he's funny. It's funny when Alejandro gets liquidated. Fuck me, right? So we're going to do Ethereum and Oclo after.
Okay.
If I get liquidated, it's coming from the ass.
Wow. Straight to the point. By the way, look at this Bitcoin chart, right? This is a daily Bitcoin chart. Look at DXY.
Hey.
They're identical, dude. Like the top was identical to the Bitcoin one. Like they're moving together. And now look at how further down DXY is, which is just finding like a interesting charts. Like again, I'm sorry about that one. This right here.
Yeah.
It's fucking identical. So weird. All right. Thank you, boys.
Yep.
That was great. Let's get it. Okay. Estamos viendo la tabla de Bitcoin simplemente en la diaria. Estamos analizando un poco de lo que ha pasado en los últimos días. Potente liquidación presidencial que me dio Donald Trump el día de ayer. Ayer estaba muy contento porque caché justamente este gran short por acá, encima en los 88,800. Lo manejé lo más bajo que pude y dije, güey, tranquilo, esto va mínimo a testear la línea amarilla. Y el perro regresó y me dejó en ceros, liquidado presidencialmente, damas y caballeros. Y ahora la pregunta es, ¿estamos ante el rally más grande y potente de toda la historia y nos vamos a ir a $180,000, como dicen esas playeras, que él tenía razón, $180,000 viene hace un año, pero no lo hemos tocado, pero ya tenía razón de todas maneras? ¿O vamos a ir para abajo? Vamos a analizarlo rápidamente, damas y caballeros, que esto se ve potente, esto pinta interesante. Por cierto, si lo estamos viendo en esta temporalidad, solamente unas notas para aquellos que están aprendiendo. Recuerden, me encanta poner rangos, me fascinan mis rangos. ¿Por qué? Porque una vez que el precio entra en uno, compras, vendes, compras, vendes, compras, vendes, y obviamente tienes una mitad del rango justamente acá, que es lo que podrías usar como referencia también en los 97,730, tal cual como lo tenemos por acá, que podemos encontrar ese gran soporte. Me encanta tradear rangos porque una vez que entras en un rango puedes identificar zonas donde hay explosiones a la alza, explosiones a la baja, y una vez que pierdes un rango simplemente se abre otro, ¿no? Es como los amores en la vida. Se abre una puerta, se cierra una puerta, pero se abre otra, ¿no? Es como dicen. Tal vez sea ventana, no tengo idea de lo que estoy hablando. Pero bueno, vámonos de vuelta con el Bitcoin. Habíamos platicado, y esto es impresionante, viendo la trimestral en Bitcoin. Podemos ver literalmente cómo esto se ve todavía muy alcista. Tenemos velas bastante potentes, creando altos más altos, bajos más altos. Volatilidad continúa empujando el movimiento a la alza. Bien, la cosa es, no podemos fiarnos en este tipo de tablas para hacer movimientos, sobre todo cuando estamos hablando de topar mercados. ¿Por qué? Porque cuando volteamos a ver el RSI acá, podemos ver que en cada pico que Bitcoin ha hecho, el RSI ha hecho un alto más bajo en la trimestral, lo que nos da 4 continuaciones de divergencia bajista, lo que a cierto punto va a tener que va a jugar, ¿no? Va a jugar en la tabla. No nada más eso. Bueno, por ahora sí. Tenemos nuestro promedio del 9 justamente en los 62,000, pero aquí déjenme prendo mis 5 para que lo vean en los 74,685. Ya bastante cerca de los 75,000 nuestro promedio del 5. Importante, recuerden, la trimestral perdemos nuestro promedio del 5 e instantáneamente consideramos que esto es bajista. Pero, como si eso fuera poco, la mensual ya tiene divergencia bajista confirmada con esta vela y lo que parece que está pasando es un retesteo bajista de este nivel antes de dar continuación, posiblemente hasta los $69,000 o más abajo. ¿Por qué decimos eso? Para empezar, la estructura como tal en este momento se ve alcista para el ojo pelón de cualquier persona. Alto, alto más alto, alto más alto, altos más altos. La cosa es, cerramos nuestra última vela mensual justamente donde nos da el pivote de momentum, se voltea para abajo y ahora eso nos dio una divergencia bajista también en la mensual que ya se dio. Cada que se termina el ciclo, termina con una divergencia bajista mensual. Por lo que esta divergencia bajista mensual que ya se dio, simplemente nos está diciendo lo que va a pasar, que muchos rehúsan a entender y creer, ¿no? Para abajo. Más allá de eso, por ahora parece estar aguantando. Tenemos nuestro promedio del 9, justamente en los 81,585. Y es muy importante que vean esto acá. Recuerden los 81,582, nuestro promedio del 9, justamente abajo esta línea amarilla. Y la razón por qué es porque en la diaria es donde tenemos nuestro promedio del SMA 200. Este nivel es bastante significante. Una vez que lo pierdas, va a dar continuación a la caída y tu siguiente parada van a ser muy probablemente los $69,000. Además, déjeme pongo el HPDR rápidamente. Volatilidad está contrayendo. Nuestro HPDR tiene la media en los 83,794, lo que nos dice perdemos la media y de ahí nuestro 9, nuestra siguiente parada podría ser la parte baja de la zona azul en 62,323. Todavía faltan 26 días y 8 horas para que se pueda dar todo este movimiento, o sea, la alza a los 104,783 o perdiéndola a la baja a los 62,000, la zona de los 62,000. Vamos a la de 2 semanas, volatilidad está contrayendo, ya lo platicamos. 2 semanas, volatilidad continúa contrayendo, por lo que no nos dice nada en lo que estamos viendo este movimiento. Hemos perdido la zona azul, tenemos el rechazo de la media famoso hace 2 velas, básicamente, y por primera vez lo hemos visto desde acá, que fue en agosto del 2024, que fue cuando caímos un 32%. Estamos perdiendo nuestro promedio del 9 en la de 2 semanas, que se encuentra en los 91,593. Y lo voy a anotar porque esa es una zona de interés para mi short. El nuevo short que voy a abrir que no me va a llevar una vez más a cero, se los prometo, ¿no? 91,000, voy a poner 600 para jugármela tranquilo, relajado, a gusto, voy a estar humectado, cremado. Semanal. Semanal nos está dando un setup de volatilidad de aquellos potentes donde nos gusta ver movimientos agresivos. Este tipo de setups nos dan movimientos del 30 al 35% a la alza o a la baja, dependiendo de dónde se apoya la volatilidad, en qué dirección esté yendo el precio una vez que pasemos la zona del 15%. Podemos ver que estamos lejos todavía en el 5,16%, estando lejos del 5,16%, pero sabemos que tenemos en la semanal un movimiento agresivo. Vamos a hacerlo rápidamente de la parte alta de esta vela a medir, un segundo, vamos a medir de la parte alta de esta vela a ver dónde es 35%. Y una coincidencia brutal con esa zona de los 62,000, 61,000 y la parte del 95%. A la alza, ¿dónde nos pondría ese 35%? Máximos históricos en $127,000. Pero como se han jugado todos nuestros últimos setups de estos a la alza, simplemente por la de 5 días nos dice que muy probablemente es a la baja. Y ahorita vamos a ver el por qué, justamente yendo a la de 5 días. Vaya, Alejandro, sé que lo tienes. En la de 5 días podemos apreciar que nuestra volatilidad comienza esa expansión ya a la baja, acá. Por lo que este movimiento sea muy probablemente correctivo y este movimiento correctivo, que por cierto llegó hasta $95,000, esté pronto llegando a su fin y la volatilidad continúe apoyando este gran movimiento a la baja, que de nuevo estamos hablando de un 35% que nos pone en la zona de los 65,000, entre 60 y 65,000 si es que se llega a dar a la baja, o 125,000 a la alza. Es lo que tenemos después de 2 periodos nulos de volatilidad y luego la expansión. Ya lo vieron. Diaria. Diaria pueden ver justamente el gran rechazo del promedio del 9, el promedio del 21, la parte alta de la zona azul. ¿Y qué sigue? Nuestra media, que está justamente en los 84,765, y de no aguantar, tenemos triple confluencia potente. Tenemos el S&P 200 en 82,727. Tenemos la parte baja de la zona azul en 82,337. Tenemos el EMA 9 en la mensual, el EMA 5, es el EMA 9 en la mensual en 91,600. Tenemos mi línea meme justamente acá, donde está marcando niveles importantes. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Cerramos por arriba de 87,900, básicamente 87,900. Tendremos una vez más una oportunidad de ir a visitar la zona de los $91,300. Una vez más, 91,600, 91,300. Interesante. La razón por la que es importante esto es dónde encontraríamos un rebote para entrar en este corto si es que nos perdimos la entrada esta mañana. Sería más o menos por acá. De no poder aguantar eso, no poder aguantar la zona de los 87,800, vamos muy probablemente mínimo a la media, primera parada 84,780 y segunda parada una vez más en los 82,300. volatilidad está contrayendo en este momento, no nos está absolutamente diciendo nada. Vamos en paralelo a checar nuestro USDT, la dominancia de USDT Tether. Como estamos en este canal alcista, continuamos rebotando en él, haciendo mínimos más altos, altos más altos, y ahora nos vamos a encontrar con la parte baja de la zona azul, además del promedio del 9, donde tenemos una alta probabilidad de rebote en el 4.97 y de ahí ir a buscar la media del canal en el 5.15. Eso literalmente nos pone una vez más en la zona de las bananas, donde puede haber explosiones a la alza, y eso nos llevaría al 5.34. Vamos a ponerlo rápido en la semanal, porque la semanal está dándonos un setup a la alza muy potente en la dominancia de Tether. Un segundo, ahí está. Esta dominancia de Tether podemos ver que está yéndose a la alza. Esto quiere decir, y vean dónde estamos justamente saliendo de la zona azul, una vez que pasemos el 5.11%, vamos a tener un viaje a donde está más o menos este SMA 200 en el 5.6%, y de ahí que les digo, tenemos más viaje a la alza. La dominancia de Tether siendo positiva es negativo para el precio de Bitcoin directamente relacionado. Porque esto quiere decir que si la dominancia de Tether crece, más gente está esperando en Tether, y si la dominancia de Tether baja, eso quiere decir que más personas están en criptos o en Bitcoin. Así que ténganlo muy presente en su análisis, damas y caballeros. Para cerrar esto, el dólar. El dólar está haciendo justamente lo que hemos pensado todo este tiempo, y la razón por qué va a dar continuación a esto es sencillo. La gente va a ver en lo que nos estamos metiendo, que es una recesión. Esta recesión, y por cierto, aquí tenemos un punto importante de aguante en el 104.226, esperemos una reacción acá de precio. Esta temporalidad no lo demuestra tan bien, pero vean lo parecido que es el gráfico del dólar y el gráfico de Bitcoin. Son las mismas fechas, todo, desde acá para abajo. Eso normalmente, esta es una correlación contraria, como la del dólar y USDT, pero está siguiendo. Y parece que el dólar es el que va adelante. Y ahora el dólar ha tenido esta caída fuerte. Una vez más, soy alcista en el dólar para final de año. Tiene que la economía gringa entender que está cayendo, que es más débil, que va a haber menos empleo, va a haber mucho desempleo, va a haber mucha gente despedida, muy poco gasto de gobierno, y esto va a hacer que el dólar por momentos tenga caídas importantes, pero después dar una repuntada gigante que se lleve a todo entre las patas. La razón por la que ver al dólar caer hoy no es lo mismo que era en el 2020, ver al dólar caer, es porque esta razón es un ajuste monetario. Es un ajuste monetario. Y por cierto, si están viendo esto y quieren saber si Trump está diciendo mentiras o no, esta tabla te lo dice todo. Si Trump te está diciendo mentiras y no está recortando presupuesto, Elon Musk está robando tu número del seguro social y quitándole a tu abuelita su pensión, ¿no? Vamos a ver más inflación y vas a ver todo seguir como ha estado en el pasado. Eso quiere decir que el dólar se va a mantener bajo en los 101 y a fin de año va a estar muy abajo, va a continuar cayendo hasta el fondo. Eso es si Elon Musk y Donald Trump te están engañando. Si estos tíos te están diciendo la verdad, están cortando presupuesto, reduciendo la masa monetaria, eso quiere decir que va a reducir inflación y vas a ver un repunte después de que encuentre suelo el dólar brutal a fin de año, y todas las monedas, incluyendo el euro, el peso, la libra y el yen, van a caer fuertemente una vez que el dólar comience su viaje alcista. Pero estoy hablando de muy, muy fuerte. La razón por la que el dólar es negativo y los bonos son negativos también es porque está Estados Unidos apreciando una recesión. El dinero inteligente, entre comillas, te está diciendo, la economía americana va a una recesión. El dólar tiene que debilitarse, por supuesto, como lo vimos con el resultado de empleos el día de hoy, y por eso el dólar también cayó tanto, porque el reporte de empleos, en vez de crear 177,000 empleos, creamos 70,000, y todavía no pegan los desempleados del gobierno ni nada eso en los libros. Entonces, cuando pegue, esto va a bajar. Mucha gente está cometiendo un error. Mucha gente está cometiendo un error y creen que los bonos están bajando porque van a imprimir más dinero. Y esto es mentira. Ya rompiste la tendencia diaria acá. Eso quiere decir que vas a ir más abajo del 4.13%. Mi siguiente objetivo son los 3.8%. Esto son intereses reales. Los intereses reales han bajado desde que dijeron que la Reserva Federal ya no iban a bajar más los tipos. Cuando la Reserva Federal dijo que iban a bajar tipos, subió. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? que esto fue inflacionario, esto deflacionario. Esto va a acabar abajo, el dólar va a tener que pagar muy poco para que la gente lo compre y lo vea atractivo, y eso va a ser después de la recesión que tenemos que vivir, que estamos viviendo, que estamos en medio de, y saliendo de ello, la recuperación del dólar va a ser brutal, los intereses se van a quedar abajo por un rato, porque Estados Unidos no le va a tener que pagar a nadie fuerte para poder holdear sus dólares. Y acá es donde pueden saber si literalmente el plan de Trump e Elon Musk está equivocado o si no. Mi opinión es, esto se está dando tal cual, ya está pasando, está en el gráfico, está en la realidad, está en la sociedad, está en nuestra economía. Así que, bueno, habrá gente que lo tiene que esperar a ver, pero aquí está tu respuesta a si es mentira o no lo que nos están diciendo. All right, boys, what are we doing, Ethereum or Oclo?
I could do whichever one, the opposite of whichever one Alex wants to do. Doesn't really matter to me.
I can do ETH.
Okay, I'll do Oclo. Made by Scam Altman.
That's right. The fucking G, my guy.
I promise it's non-profit. JK.
By the way, now, did you see what he wants to do? He wants to charge per prompt. He's going to give you a package, $20 a month. So this is kind of like the new carbon tax, right? So it's $20 a month, and $20 a month gives you a certain amount of prompts, and after that, you need to pay for each prompt. He's already
Go fuck yourself, sir.
But by the way, they're all going to do it because that's going to be, remember the carbon tax? Right now, everyone is going to want to use artificial intelligence, and they're going to be like, you can use it, but each prompt is going to cost a certain amount. And that's how people are going to be taxed for being stupid or not.
Well, I don't know if Elon's going to go that route, is he? With Grok?
I bet you $1 billion he will. I don't have $1 billion, but I'll get a loan.
Hey, I mean, Elon has shown he's willing to do that with the Teslas. Basically, everything that used to be for free in a Tesla is now a subscription service. You even have to pay for the garage door opener. That's not free anymore.
There you go. That's insane. So that's where it's going. Remember when Farshad and I used to make the jokes about everything's going to be a subscription?
Yep.
Here we are.
The internet used to be free for life in the car. Now you got to pay for that. You got to pay for the garage door opener.
Dude, BMW makes you pay for renting the heated seats.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. No. This is really stupid. Honest,
I also don't side with the people who are like, oh, my car already does this, so why do I have to pay to unlock it? Because you didn't pay for that feature.
That I understand. Yeah.
It makes no difference to you whether BMW is saving money by including it in your car if you didn't pay for it.
Yeah. And by the way, electric cars have a ton of unlocking features coming up. They just haven't done it because people aren't ready, but they're coming. I
don't think people are entitled to something just because the car has it built in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This gets me so much hate online. People call me a bootlicker.
Right.
on the monthly right now, we are getting to a very, very, very extreme area. I find it very difficult to not see it continue to pull back from here. I mean, we've already seen how much of a percent pullback, 53%, and we're still over the 100% on the HPDR. Every single time in the past we've gotten to this area, we've seen a significant pullback to end up closing below that 100%. This time around, we had a 26%. To the close, we actually had a 46% move. This time around, 20%. Then to the close, around, 23%. Very similar numbers. So if you were to take 23% from this level here, or about 20%, brings us just below our current lows. Takes us to somewhere around $26 right now. That would be just below our 100% in the HPDR range, and I would expect it to close below there because probabilistically it's very unlikely to close above that 100% range. This would be one of those things where like you could take a very high probability short. You wouldn't really want to touch leverage on one of this type of moves though. Maybe very low leverage, and you can get leverage on stocks at BTCC using our link. You would short it right over here. You'd have your stop loss at this wick high, so your risk to the upside it is quite a bit. It's like 18%. But if you're right, you would basically get a free move to the minimum that 9 EMA, which is right now. Let's see. Same about 18% to the downside. So you have same risk to the upside and downside. Not really the best, but since you are still very extreme levels on the HPDR, it would be a lot more likely that you would come down towards the 95%, and that would be a move of about 25% to the downside. And if you're that low, might as well go to the 21. That's 36% to the downside. It's just getting to such extreme areas. I don't see it significantly pulling back more. It's still at 100% on the momentum, 98%, 98.8%. Volatility is at 98.8%, even after a 50% move to the downside. 2 week is once again like trying to expand, but still below the moving average. Volatility still below the moving average, while we're getting a loss of this 9 EMA, which is at about $30.79. We do lose that level. Very likely we're going to come back down to the 21 at about like $23.48. Let's see where that ends up on the monthly. Right below our 9 EMA on the monthly. Weekly now has momentum shifting down, losing the moving average with volatility contracting. So as of right now, it is more of a higher low posturing than an actual bearish posturing. And the jewel is starting to give you a God mode sell signal. Let's mark with a vertical line. Last time we had a God mode sell signal. Right there. Right there. Enough? Yeah, that should be enough because that's all we have. Oh, the price was so low down here, I'm gonna have to zoom out a lot. So this one was not really anything at all, 1.1% to the downside. This one was a failure. This one played out by about 3%, not even really anything at all. Now is where we get the bigger moves, more later into the price action. That was quite the dump. That was about 65% to the downside. And this is a lot more comparable because now we actually have data. And from the current one, let's mark that with the vertical line. It's about 21.5% to the downside. So if you were to take it 60% like that previous one, it brings us quite low. Brings us to basically this previous top here right around $14. And if we do go that low, I would expect us to end up bouncing pretty significantly because we'd be way below that 100%. And I would expect to close over that $16 area. Five days also trying to shift back up on momentum, still below the moving average, still getting that sell signal on the jewel. What it's going to confirm to us, the invalidation of this bear scenario, though, is if we get back over this wick high at about $38.68, quite a bit away from where we are right now. What's more likely is that we get a rejection if we continue to bounce. We get a rejection at this 5 and 9 around $34, and then probably down from there. 2-day also goes along with the idea that we probably bounce because we're getting to 99% on our momentum, 99% on our volatility, and we're approaching the 100% range of the HPDR, which we are seeing a bounce off right off of the 55 EMA as well. Makes it very likely we're going to end up bouncing from here upwards towards 9 EMA around like $36, $34 to $36. This area is very likely going to be strong resistance. And it goes along with the jewel getting the pink, crossing both the yellow, and dark blue losing the bullish control zone, approaching the bearish control zone. Quite the bearish jewel posturing. If we were to apply a vertical line, we had that before. There. There. There.
I wouldn't go that far back. That was not Oklo.
All right, so you erase the one from 2023.
Yeah.
All right, 2024 is where 2024 is where we'll start it. All right, this one's not very significant at all either. Although let's see if it did get it moved down. Not really. Yeah, not even 1%. Then when it actually started playing out right here. So first of all, you got to move to the upside of around 22% before the real move happened of 53.9, and then 65% to the downside. Quite significant. This one was 24% to the downside. And this current one, 27%, very in line with this one right here. If you were to get that same one from before and you do 50% to the downside, brings us also to around $17 to $18. Very likely, though, we do end up getting that bounce before anything else because of that 99% on the momentum and volatility, though, and 100% on the HPDR. Daily is also giving us the idea of a bounce. Momentum is starting to shift up, getting above the moving average from hitting 100%. And volatility is now starting to shift down after hitting 100%. And now the jewel is starting to lose its sell signal and curve over into a neutral signal. Let's mark with the vertical line whenever we've done that in the bearish control zone. Right there. And probably going to be the last one. And right here, only one other example. And how much percent move did that take us each time? 361% to the upside. 228% to the upside. Very unlikely that we get that type of move this time around, though. But what is not unlikely is a move somewhere around $34 to $36, which if you were to take that from where we are here, that's a solid 24% move to the upside. Very tradable. And the 4-hour also goes along with the idea of a bounce where momentum is now flipping back over the moving average and volatility is contracting, telling us very likely corrective bounce. Let's zoom in on this. See if we see if we went lower or not. No, we did not. We made a higher low. So there is 4-hour bullish divergence present as well, because we made a higher low on momentum while making a lower low on price. To confirm it, we'd have to close over $32.25. And that very likely takes us up towards somewhere around this 100 EMA, which right now is at about $35. Very, very similar number as before. And that very likely, and that gives us a very nice lower high before we end up continuing lower. Plus, it'll be a retest of the silver cross at the downside, right around this 21 EMA. Ding! We got a little bit of a fun event scheduled for later on today. There's like this company that does all transparent boats in Cancun.
Oh, that's pretty fucking cool. I love those.
Some of them are scams where you just get a tiny ass window, but this boat is all.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is quite worrying now to look at this on the monthly RSI, because now you're getting a third drive bearish divergence approaching and very close to being confirmed. In the next 26 days and 4 hours, this divergence will confirm if you close below. Fuck, why does it keep doing this? If you close below $29.82, basically if you lose $30, you will get that bearish divergence confirmed. And at a minimum target, you're going to go to the simple moving average, which is around $24, $23.83, very similar to the level I had before breaking down to 17. And then the next level is the middle zone, which is going to change, but as of right now is sitting at around $11.12. And we were at many periods of monthly 100% volatility. So now we are starting to see volatility contraction alongside the bearish divergence, which pretty nice to see volatility contraction when you're getting bearish divergence, because bearish divergence on the monthly is usually pretty devastating. Like you can see right here. This time around, though, we had volatility expansion, so we didn't have volatility contraction. What we saw this percent of a move down. This was 71.5% move to the downside. So we should theoretically not see that much of a move down, maybe down to around $24. It's wick below lower, maybe just below $20, somewhere around this 21 EMA, around $18 to $19. But I don't see it going that much lower, and that would still be another lower high. I mean, higher low in the macro. 2 week has confirmed the 3 drives of bearish divergence. We have now tested the edge of the bullish control zone, which would be your first easy target, along with the contracting volatility. Your next target, if you close below $29.82, likely going to be somewhere around the middle zone, which is going to change. But right now, because right now it's at $5.59, and I don't think it's going that low. Weekly as well as 3 drives of bearish divergence active. Going to be active as long as you're closing below $38.68. And if you close below 29.82, you're likely going to get another leg down on this divergence, which is right now the middle zone, which is at about $23.50. 5-day has bearish divergence as long as you're closing below $38.68. Close below 29.25 for the next leg down. That takes you towards the middle zone at about $22. Three-day as well has 3 drives of bearish divergence confirmed as long as you're closing below $38.68. Close below 29.82 for the next leg down towards the middle zone and about $21.23. 3 days putting 2 days putting in another possible drive of bearish divergence from this high here, which is lower high than this high here, where the price made a much higher high. It's going to confirm with a close below right now $29. I should be using this one, $29.82. And that would take us towards somewhere around the critical zone, which right now is a little bit too low for us to see. The first level would be the bearish control zone, though, around 23s. Nope. 4 hours now, about to freshly put in a drive of hidden bearish divergence, and it will confirm as long as we close below. Just open $30.41, and that divergence will give us, if confirmed, the target of the simple moving average at a minimum. That sits at about $18.70, very close to another target that we had previously. Momentum. Ding. It is a little bit reassuring to see this volatility contracting while momentum is to the downside. It is currently rejecting the critical zone, and it's going to be pointed down below $36. And from here, what I'd like to see is momentum to flip down and then test somewhere around the edge of the bullish control zone and see then if we can hold that as support. And we'll know that'll happen on this next open if this pivot goes down. 2 week as well is doing the same thing as the monthly. Volatility contraction with momentum flipping down at the critical zone, and it's going to be flipped down as long as we're below $53.75. That is quite high up. Same idea as the monthly, though. I want to see what the pivot goes down to at the edge of the bullish control zone. Weekly as well as getting contracting volatility with momentum flipping down at the critical zone, and it's going to be pointed down below $54.55. 5-day flipping down with volatility contraction at the critical zone, $54.65. 2-day flip down below $49.50, entering into the critical zone pretty soon. And now volatility starting to expand once again on this dump. Not looking the best. Daily as well. Daily is starting to contract a little bit. This is a double extreme. Yeah, double extreme on the volatility. Now we're getting volatility contraction with momentum close to flipping up, still flip to the downside. It's actually flipped up right now, and it will flip down in the next 4.5 hours if we close below $31.93. Very close to flipping down. 4 hours also about to flip down in the next 1 hour and 51 minutes, basically 2 hours, if we close below $29.94. Kind of looks like the lower high on the daily could be in. Check a little bit lower. This one's starting to look a little opium or bullish opium, where we are getting momentum flipping up on the 2-hour. Where is it flipping up? Right at the edge of the critical zone, breaking back into the bearish control zone, very close to breaking out of the bearish control zone, and it will flip up as long as you're above $28.01. A little bit of sombering information though is that the volatility did start contracting whenever momentum flipped up, making it very likely that we're just going to come up here and test them around this 200 and reject that and continue to go down. And that's at a very, very familiar $34 to $35 area. All right. Momentum on the high time frames is all starting to shift down now, and it goes along with hitting the 100% on the HPDR. And we're putting in bearish divergence on the monthly. However, we're putting it in with volatility contraction, making it likely that we're going to see a higher low and then end up going up from there. But even that higher low is going to be somewhere like 65 to 70% down from our current highs. Pretty insane to see that, just to put in the higher low on the macro and end up making new highs from there. 2-week is now getting volatility flipping down. Monthly is very close to getting, momentum flipping down and volatility flipping down. Monthly is very close to getting momentum flipping down. You're putting in your bearish divergence. You got weekly with momentum flip down. Every single time frame is now getting momentum flipping down, except for the daily, which is currently flipped up. Although daily is very close to flipping down, it can seem like the lower high isn't on the daily. And if you flip down to the lower time frames, 4 hours, very close to flipping down, and the 2 hours already flipped down. Kind of seems like we've put in a lower high, and we're probably going to dump from here somewhere around $23 to maybe $18. If we continue upwards, the confirmation would be a close on a daily basis over $32 and let's say $33 to be safe, and that will send us up towards like 35 to 36. Would not expect to see much higher than there. In my IMO, in my opinion, 35 to 36 is going to be the prime opportunity short place to enter, and then you just ride that for free down to $23 to $18. High probability it makes another macro higher or low around $18, and then continues towards all-time highs from there.
For that delicious lower high right here. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, sir. That was great. So what you're saying is go long until we hit $200.
Indeed. But wait until $36 to do it.
To get really fucked. All right. Thank you. Estamos viendo Oclo en la diaria. Oclo es una compañía que Sam Altman hizo con un SPAC. Fue como se volvieron públicos, y es la empresa de Sam Altman que crea mini reactores nucleares para poder en el futuro darle energía a toda su operación de inteligencia artificial. Bien, con eso dicho, vamos a analizar el precio de Oclo, que está en este momento cotizando en 29.53 después de llegar a un máximo histórico de 59.19. Vamos a empezar por la mensual. No hay tantos datos porque por más que vean esta cola de datos, todo esto en el pasado fue literalmente chocolate porque era del SPAC. Sam Altman básicamente entró por acá más o menos, tuvo este pompazo, este dompazo, esto fue lo que nos atrajo a esto y ¡pum! Nos dio este golpe a la alza. Ahora, en la mensual tenemos divergencias bajistas y tenemos una tercera divergencia bajista pegando, lo que nos dice que estamos muy probablemente ante una caída. Y en medio de la caída vamos a encontrar correcciones a la alza donde podamos aprovechar para hacer cortos. Pueden ver que volatilidad es muy difícil de leer en este gráfico en la mensual, sobre todo así, pero con el HPDR simplificando las cosas pueden ver por qué el tío Sal lo vendió en este en vivo, porque estamos por encima del 100% en el HPDR, lo que nos daba nada de posibilidades de dar continuación a esto, y eso fue lo que nos hizo decir en los 55, creo, 53, algo por acá para vender en esta vela. Y ahora esa vela, pueden ver la vela megatopera que se volvió. Un segundo. La vela megatopera en la que se volvió, la cantidad del wick es potentísimo a la alza, y ahora cualquier cierre por debajo de los 29.69 nos da esa divergencia bajista para poder continuar a la baja. ¿Ok? Importante saberlo, anotarlo. Viendo el HPDR, siguientes niveles, obviamente tu promedio del 9 en los 24, pero podríamos llegar tranquilamente al 21. Vamos a acercarnos un poco más para quitarle ruido a este gráfico que es difícil de leer así. También acá podemos ver exactamente lo que habíamos dicho. Llegamos a topar en el casi 100%. Luego acá volvimos a tocar el 95% que nos rechazó. Caímos y el promedio del 9 nos había aguantado todo este rally desde básicamente octubre del 2024, que fue cuando salió de los $5, empujó a los 7, 8 y de ahí se fue hasta literalmente 55, casi $60. Desde entonces habíamos podido aguantar el promedio del 9 sin problema alguno y ahora estamos por debajo de él en la de 2 semanas. Esto instantáneamente nos hace pensar que nuestro siguiente objetivo va a estar acá en los 26.38 y de romper los 26.38 a la baja, primero tienes tu promedio del 21, pero muy probablemente tu promedio del 34 es el que te aguante en los 19.46, más o menos esa área. Vamos a la semanal. Semanal también no tiene nada, muy probablemente, no, volatilidad está contrayendo y con eso podemos ver acá en la semanal también estamos cayendo, nos rechaza el 95%, caemos del 80%, nos rechaza el promedio del 9 y el promedio del 9 una vez más, solamente lo habíamos perdido en una vela, en un cierre semanal, ya tenemos uno y aquí va por el segundo. Este segundo cierre de no poder cerrar por encima de $31, nos vamos a ir a visitar la zona de los 26.70 una vez más, justamente por donde estábamos. Voy a ponerla de 2 días, en esta es la que me gusta. Y podemos ver que estamos ante una corrección rápida, que hemos estado ahora del otro lado en temporalidades más cortas, sobrevendidos del otro lado, ¿no? Que es para abajo. ¿Esto qué nos quiere decir? Que probablemente Oclo va a encontrar por acá un piso para hacer algo así más o menos, hasta más o menos esta zona donde está el 97%, y de ahí dar sus movimientos continuos que vemos en temporalidades más altas. Vamos a la diaria para ver exactamente cómo se ve esto. Y en la diaria también te dice, vino y te está rechazando el 97.5%. Vienes por acá arriba, estás arriba del promedio del 100 en los 28.87 y estás intentando poder subir de acá. Pero acá ya tienes un cruce plateado. No, todavía no. No, sí, no. Sí. Sí, no, todavía no se da el cruce plateo porque el 21 está acá y el 55 está acá. Ok, vamos a quitarle un poco de ruido al gráfico con el HPDR. Lo vamos a poner acá para todos ustedes en la diaria. Yo creo que esto es un gráfico bastante sencillo, elaborado. Es de estos gráficos que se me hacen muy fáciles de leer. Cierre por debajo de los 30, que es donde tengo esta línea meme. Vamos para abajo, siguiente parada 26. Después de los 26 va a ser fuerte porque este rango se convierte y baja hasta los 18 y ahí es donde tenemos también nuestro SMI 200 en la diaria, lo que nos dice que muy probablemente vamos a ir a esa zona, mínimo para empezar. ¿Qué es lo que nosotros creemos que va a pasar simplemente por la corta temporalidad comparado con cómo se ve con la alta temporalidad? Vamos a tener un rebote por acá, este rebote por acá nos va a dar el alto más, un alto más bajo, nos va a dar continuación a la baja. ¿Ves este alto? Vamos a buscar cerrar un alto más bajo y de ahí nos vamos a la baja. Podría ser, por supuesto, en los 33.94, que es donde está el promedio del 9, o podría ser hasta los 36, $37 y de ahí dar continuación a la baja. Si somos alcistas en Oclo, nos gustaría que aguante los $30, ver este rebote. Y si somos más alcistas, queremos superar esta zona en los $37. Superando esta zona en los $37, se va a empezar bien para irse a la alza, pero por ahora está la tendencia bajista ante una corrección y muchas divergencias en altas temporalidades bajistas que nos van a dar continuación a la baja eventualmente en lo que encontramos este rebote. Aquí lo tienen, les voy a dar mis niveles para que los tengan, 54.70, 43.64, siguiente nivel, 30, abajo de los 30 tengo mi primera línea. Esta línea es básicamente la primera señal de que te vas a ir a los 18, que está en los 26.30, y de ahí 18.22. Abajo de eso, pues ya veremos, pero por ahí mínimo es lo que esperaríamos ver este movimiento de Oclo. Algo así. Es lo que tiene cara y después acá podrá consolidar una vez más en este super rango que se había metido. Eso, damas y caballeros, es Oclo. All righty, we're ready for some Ethereum.
Nice. Yeah, let's see if anything changed for ETH at all for bulls. Because, you know, it's just solidly been going down. So we talked about this wick here. This wick was important because we actually view this on a weekly. You know, we can see, even though we got a pretty epic bounce from support, and we were talking about this 2-3 zone being very likely, as soon as we lost to 3-6, we were talking pretty heavily about this being a major range, very big, but seemed likely as long as the weekly 9 kept us down, the 2-3 level was next. We went there and we actually got a pretty epic bounce from that point. But what you'll notice is that bounce really didn't do anything for bulls. Yes, they bounced at 16%, but you see here, price ended up rallying for 2 weeks, rejected the weekly 9, forming another weekly lower high. You know, there's really, it's very simple for me. You know, as long as Ethereum and ETH versus Bitcoin is in this posturing of a weekly downtrend, rejecting the weekly EMA9, and let's see if it has a silver cross. Because it might have been crossed a long time ago. It did, yeah. So, I mean, that just shows you how weak Ethereum versus Bitcoin is the silver cross in the weekly has been rejecting us now for essentially since July 2024, which is pretty insane. So yes, we are approaching support. We talked about this scenario. You know, what you're going to see is ETH BTC bulls talking about the double bottom scenario, right? You have the low, you came up, another low, possibly a rally up, double bottom. But remember, most double bottoms fail, and trend will always be the key factor here. And if we go and shift this chart to a monthly view, you know, what you can see is we've just solidly been in a monthly downtrend. You know, even into essentially February, it didn't do anything for price. You can see the monthly is now actively in a silver cross to the downside, which has never occurred in Ethereum versus Bitcoin's history before. Right now, you know, if ETH BTC comes all the way down to 2.3, I'd expect a reaction, of course. But, you know, as long as we're under essentially the 3 level, I'm going to be looking at this as just majorly bearish. Yes, we'll probably get a bounce. That bounce will probably just form another lower high on the daily. And for me now, especially with my stance on Bitcoin, I personally don't think the 2.3 level is going to hold on ETH BTC, and we have to start looking at the 1.6 level. And that is, you know, unfortunate for bulls because it's basically what I was saying here. I don't think the 3.6 level is going to hold. You'll want to be bullish on altcoins and Ethereum if it does. But if we break this, it's just going to give us, you know, another move down. And it's the same thing. We start losing the 2.3 number, you know, that's going to give me great confidence that, you know, we're probably going to capitulate down. And this buyback, you know, bull stepping in here is actually just going to act more like a trap. You see, we're just slowly bleeding down. Bulls are hoping we catch a bid here. We start taking out this low, it's probably going to lead to a major dump, in my opinion. Now, again, we still probably see some reaction around the 2.3, especially since we are at the extremes on the daily. But, I mean, even here, we've seen ETH BTC go to absolute extremes on the monthly many times before. More to the downside, actually only to the downside, actually. Then the funny part is we even have confluence here. You really start losing the 88.3 zone, which is right around the 2.3 level. You're going to get a nice move down to the 95, 97.5% range. We have to just now look at the meme line as confluence. And this 1 point, this 0.0168 level is really important for Ethereum. When viewing it for ETH BTC, when viewing it on a monthly, you can just see here, this is a pretty epic zone to hold, and there hasn't been many occurrences where we have actually tested this zone. You see, once we lost the 2.3 level, we aggressively dumped down to the 1.6 level. Again, you held the 2.3 level, you went up to the next zone. It's very simple. That's why this zone here needs to hold for Ethereum. Here as well, you deviated the 2.3 level, you dumped to the 1.6 level. You can even see that didn't hold, and then that dumped us even more. You could even just draw another meme line right there. So now you're just getting all these meme lines. But as long as we are under 2.3, there is hopium that this is going to give us some kind of bounce. I mean, this has just been aggressively going down for 4 months straight now. But we have to be very cautious of that because as soon as we start losing essentially February 3rd's a low, this is probably going to capitulate down. Nothing is telling me that ETH BTC is bullish, in my opinion. And the only thing is just hopium at that point that you're just going to bet that the 2.3 level gives us some kind of reaction again, essentially. But even on the 4 hour, look at this. You're just breaking down now. Volatility is resetting. It's looking like the 4 hour wants to break down again. Not a good sign. And, you know, especially after we deviated that EMA9, tested that, this seems ready to start going down again. So let's look at ETH now. Let's see if we can get any kind of hopium, because that was just not good for ETH bulls, I will say. And what is going on here? Let's just see what has happened. So, going into this month, March, and then also April, I was always talking about the possibility of, since we're reaching the end of this chart here, which means we're basically reaching the end of this channel. If this is going to be true, this would be the end of it, meaning you're going to get a move, a breakout or a breakdown. Now, I was always cautious of Ethereum here, specifically when we're engaging the weekly. I was talking about how that weekly SMA 200 was very important for ETH. And you can see here, we did hold it, but we are now definitely losing it this week, possibly. I mean, this is closing in 4 days. It definitely is looking that way.
I apologize for interrupting you, but I found some useful information.
Okay.
The production cost to produce one Bitcoin, the electrical cost, has now dropped to $58,700. Those are usually very macro lows.
Yeah, generally Bitcoin doesn't like to drop under that ever.
I see what you're saying. That mining cost, will stay above the mining cost. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so like in the COVID dump, it dumped exactly to the electrical cost, maybe a little bit below it for like a second.
Got it. Makes sense.
That gives us an important 58,700.
Okay.
It's about 60K.
Yeah. Right at that weekly. I mean, if we took the 55 off here, we lose that EMA 34. Yeah. I mean, per this, you're going to get that move to the EMA 100, which is right at 63,000. So kind of similar.
That's probably going to be equivalent to the move in January of 2022, whenever we bounced from about 30K to 48.
Yeah. And then, I mean, from there, we literally could go shoot and then reject, or go all the way up to the here and reject. But still, that would be a multi-$1,000 move. Insane. So now, with what I was saying, though, is ETH is breaking down. This is breaking down. We're now in the process of it. I mean, this chart did hold true. So we're now getting volatility at this point. This weekly is most likely going to lose the SMA 200, and this could give us an easy potential short. The idea would be we get that mean reversion move, depending on wherever we get the bounce, and then we reject, because this has been very strong support on ETH. So I want to start seeing this act as resistance, and this to break, and price to really break away from that SMA 200. Let me see if we've got any occurrences of that, where we held it and then broke away from it. Nope, not really. You can just see the history of Ethereum. We've essentially stayed above it. And that just essentially shows you how terrible ETH is at this point. If you're using this as like an investment tool, it's why? What is the logic of even investing in Ethereum right now? I mean, you don't even have support of the monthly 9. If I threw the monthly 5 on, you definitely don't have support of that. This is in a confirmed downtrend. This is a bear market, essentially. If you're investing in Ethereum and dollar cost averaging, I personally don't see why. But I could be wrong, but I just don't see why. This looks like we never made a new cycle high. Bitcoin is potentially in a mini bear market. Ethereum legitimately can go down to like $1,400, $1,500 pretty fast. Now, remember, we have levels. So we always said here that $1,800 was big. It's very important for ETH, and we'd probably see some reaction there. We essentially got that, front ran it slightly. But you can see we're just in the process of breaking down again, because what we see is the $2,300 zone was strong support for ETH. What you see is once we lost that 2,300, we essentially broke down, right? Like lost it, broke down $900. So the fact that we're losing that zone now, retesting it and rejecting, yeah, we don't need to dump to $1,400, $1,500 now, but closing the monthly anywhere below $2,300 will greatly increase the chance of us going at minimum to $1,500, in my opinion. You can see that the monthly confirmed the breakdown. You see here that now we're finally getting that monthly expansion. I remember we were talking about this a lot. The idea was that monthly BBWP was going to reset. We were hoping it was going to give us a setup here. While then we reached the end of this channel, giving us a very high conviction short and telling us that, yeah, this is going to collapse price. What we see now is BBWP didn't reset, but we're now breaking above the moving average. We are essentially at lows that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, we were around these lows in like April of 2022, which is interesting because that is essentially when we bigly broke down to 900. And you can again see losing 2,300 just kind of sparked that move. The difference too is you see that, we didn't fully lose the EMA 34 here. We have lost that, and we're even rejecting it now. And so this again just ties into what I've been saying. Ethereum looks absolutely terrible. And I personally do think that $1,400 is going to be next. And it's essentially just going to be getting a meme line off January 2018's high. We should see some reaction there. We've seen nice follow through on that, up and down. But as long as we are under that monthly 34, Ethereum isn't a confirmed bear market to me. The monthly trend is down. Yes, we can get bounces, big bounces, of course. I mean, we could put in a monthly lower high at this point. Like we could come all the way down. We could rally all the way up to this point, put in a monthly lower high, and then dump easily. That's why I don't like trading Ethereum, because it's not as easy as like Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, this is looking very corrective to me. You want to now gauge the weekly close on ETH and kind of use that as your guide. If we start closing weeklies under that SMA 200, possibly then a rally up and then rejection of that point. Right? Flip this zone that was support into resistance, and then we can get the breakdown. That to me would seem likely, and I would just patiently be waiting on that. There's no trade right here now. We're going to be catching resistance at 2,300. You start reclaiming that on a daily, which is 2,300. You're going to be reclaiming that daily 9. It's going to give us good confluence of the move back up to 2,500. But at that point, if especially the weekly loses the SMA 200, you have to watch very carefully of, that just giving us the bearish retest. Because on the weekly, that's where you're going to want to see it is, we dumped, short scaled in, we rallied up. And then at that point, we really want to start seeing a really aggressive dump down to $1,400. And that's just simply because we have like no data of this being under the SMA 200. We have a little bit, of course, like here, you can see it fell through. At that point, we dumped 17%. Okay. But even on that point, we dumped, rallied up, rejected. And at that point, we dumped 17%, just like what I'm saying. From that point, retested it, right? Bearish retest. And then at that point, we fell 14%. And then even here, lost it, put in the bearish retest. We pumped up 5%, and then we dumped 8%. And I do think that those are all the occurrences besides here, where once ETH really did lose that weekly SMA 200, we ended up dumping 47% from there. And then I could take it from here because we see here an aggressive retest. This is kind of what I'm talking about. We just lose it, rally up, aggressively retest it. From that point, you collapse 64%. So I just showed all the occurrences of price losing the weekly SMA 200, and each time has resulted in over 10% move down. So we can just use this as our criteria now. Like, as long as we're under the SMA 200 on the weekly, this is done. This is screwed. And we're going to have a very easy target to, in my opinion, 1,800 first, lose that, going to test $1,400. $1,400 is very important for Ethereum. We have no price action on that EMA 100, but just with what I know, with the correlation with the EMA 100, this level, and also where we would be on the HPDR, assuming this shifts up, maybe we could find a nice bounce here. That's essentially what I'm saying is you should be expecting some major bounce at that EMA 100. That easily could put in another lower high on the monthly. Bounces and a reversal, but yeah, that's basically it. This essentially seems like my 2025 objective for Ethereum now is $1,400 to $1,500, as long as we stay under 2,300. So, it's just like GG bulls. It's not good, and like even the monthly volatility is telling us, that's not the most absurd thing. At all, actually. And we really did start seeing ETH move once it broke above its moving average, right? Here, broke above its moving average, moved up, broke above its moving average here. If it wants to load, dumped. And then let's see here, broke above its moving average, and that's when the move started. So the point I'm really trying to nail in is Ethereum isn't a bear market. This is now just breaking down, and it's confirmed breaking down on last month's closure. We lost the 38.2%. We haven't done that in a long time to the downside. Actually, the only time when we did lose it aggressively was in the bear market here. So yeah, I mean, that's just it. And when we lost it from that bear market, yeah, we collapsed 74%. Yeah, I know we slightly lost it, I think. Boom, boom. No, yeah, that was actually, I mean, we slightly lost it here, I'll be honest, but yeah, that's not good. So let's just, before I finish this off, let me just see from 2300, 36%. Yeah, we definitely could go lower though. I mean, I'm personally going to be on the camp that if we lose 1400, ETH is going to make a new low. And I think we're going to go down to the 550, 600. That to me would make a lot of sense, especially when we know that we haven't broken or made a new cycle high. The $500 zone has been a big area for me since we made this $800 low. You know, so just ugly though, very ugly. But yeah, I mean, you lose 500, ETH is done. It's cooked. So yeah, I'm sorry, bulls. Don't really have anything. I have zero opium for you if you're under 2300. So that's all I have. GG.
Not bad, not terrible, but really terrible. I'm gonna finish this super quick and go. You guys, if you want to roll, do you guys mind? I mean, if you feel like it, because there's so many questions here. If you guys can hook up with sometime the community guys, the community members of XRP.
How do we see the comments?
I'll tell you right now. By the way, you just access the Vimeo video on ETA and all the comments are there. So it would be Rivian, Coinbase, Tesla, XRP.
All right, so we'll just post those charts on the Discord, or we'll do those live.
Yeah, if you want, no, what I'm saying is, if you want to do an analysis on those prices for the Discord, or you can do it on Twitter, just so that people have it, just because I have to run. This is my bad.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, we can go live on the Discord.
All righty. Thank you so much, boys. Enjoy. Have a good one. Enjoy the boat, Farhan.
Hasta luego.
Me voy a tener que ir en putiza, pero ahí les va básicamente lo que tienen que ver con Ethereum y la razón por qué lo tienen que ver. Es súper fácil. Aquí tienen Ethereum en la semanal. Pueden ver que estamos creando que no nada más no altos más altos, bajos, altos más bajos, altos más bajos, altos más bajos, pero también bajos más bajos. Ya nos llevamos toda esta y ahora podríamos tener nuestro siguiente nivel en los 1531. De no aguantar los 1531, esta fiesta se acabaría potentemente. ¿Cómo sabes si vas a ir a los 1531? Simplemente perdiendo los 1990. Perdiendo los 1990 en un cierre, puedes decirle adiós a Ethereum y nos vamos a los 1531. De ahí veremos a dónde más puede ir el precio. ¿Dónde nos ponemos alcistas? Por encima de los 2500, porque es donde tenemos el S&P 200. Podríamos decir que esto tiene posibilidades de dar un buen rebote por acá. Y después los 2900. Tienes que pasar los 2900 para poder decirlo. Pero esta sería tu primera parada en los 2500. Segunda parada 2900. Y de ahí podrías tener más confianza que vas a ir a la parte alta de esto. Tal vez a poner un alto macro más bajo que los pasados. O tal vez a romper a la alza. Eso, damas y caballeros, es Ethereum. Es bastante fácil. Es bajista. Es lo más bajista que podemos ver en todos los gráficos. Lo pueden ver acá perfectamente. Perdemos este wicazo en la diaria, nos vamos para abajo. Podemos ganarle por acá encima. El primera resistencia va a estar en 2300, luego 2500 va a ser una zona muy importante y luego 2900, justamente como decíamos antes, por acá encima poder superar para tal vez ir a buscar un alto más bajo en los 3500, pero ahí lo tienen, ahí tienen sus niveles. Discúlpenme, me tengo que ir corriendo, tengo un evento en este momento. Les mando un fuerte abrazo, cuídense mucho y nos vemos después. Gracias por acompañarnos y vayan a checar el Discord. Seguramente Alex, Farhan van a hacer un en vivo ahorita para continuar esto. Perdón que me tengo que ir. Pórtense bien. Nos vemos pronto.